Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Players Take episode 295. I'm your host, Justin DeSimone, joined, as always, by my co-host, Montrell Rice. Montrell, how are you this week?
The week started off pretty shitty, but it's all right now. I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm tired. Back from vacation, so back to the work grind. But still getting some gaming in and whatnot. I got my shower finished today. The glass got put in, so we just need to wait till basically got to wait like 24 hours for everything to set, and then we can start using it. So good to go on that front. So that's exciting. Good stuff. But yeah, man, your Lions are probably one of the best teams in the NFL right now. How does that make you feel?
I feel really good, but then I also thought about the Eagles last season, and I get really nervous.
The collapse.
Yeah, exactly.
It can happen at any time. However, I don't think Dan Campbell's the type of coach who's going to let that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, I really like Dan Campbell a lot. So
yeah, I do too. No, I think you got a special coach on your hands. So I think you're probably safe from that. I think the problem for the Lions is ultimately going to be getting over that hump of winning, in the playoffs. That's going to be their main hurdle as an organization now. They made it to the championship game, but that often cannot mean much, to a team. You really got to have that special season. You have to win the Super Bowl. Like, because the Niners fans understand this in recent years. Like, dude, they've made it to like 3 Super Bowls and they've lost all 3. It's like, so. And then there's plenty of other examples of teams who are like on the rise, who like make it to a Super Bowl and they lose. Bengals actually recently being a good example, and then they don't get anywhere close again. And it's like, so you gotta, like, that's the main hurdle for the Lions at this point, which is, hey man, coming from where they've been in our lives, like,
I know, right?
I mean you gotta take it, right? Like, you're not there's no complaining, right?
Yeah, I am enjoying this ride as long as it can go. That's where I'm at. I'm not a disgruntled. I think all Lions fans are just like, we're here and we're just gonna enjoy it while it lasts. We're not like the Cowboys fans.
Nah, man, they're just fun, dude. Like, this past weekend, like they're tied with the Titans, right? Probably one of the worst teams of the league, if not the worst. 14-14 in the first quarter, and then, like, as the afternoon goes on, you look back and it's like 52-14. It's like, what the fuck happened in that game? It's like, so it's
I think I checked out around the third quarter. I was like, this game's over with.
Oh yeah, it was done. But yeah, dude, you got Khalif Raymond scoring multiple touchdowns on special teams and offense, and just like, you got running backs throwing fucking balls to Sam Laporta for touchdowns. Like, it's all working right now, man. Like, just enjoy the ride.
I like how experimental their playbook is. It's a very experimental playbook, and I think everyone else is like kind of stuck on their same. We're not gonna. That's why they're fun to watch, because you just never know what the fuck they're gonna do. Is he gonna go on the 4th down or not? Like, you just never fucking know.
Yeah. Well, their offensive coordinator is Ben Johnson, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are able to keep him, because I think he's a very important piece of the sauce for the team. He's gonna get head coaching offers, but I hope he decides to stay, because his best chance to win a Super Bowl is probably staying with this team for the next few years. But for sure, we'll see. Money and career advancement are always hard for people to turn down. So we shall see on that front. But hey, man, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for Lions fans. Like, I've watched this team. Like, Stafford was an era, right, with the Lions. And especially early in his career, when Calvin Johnson was still on the team,
like, we had Megatron with him. Man.
There were some spicy seasons, right? Like, there were some ones where they were pretty spicy, but they could never break through that barrier of like the divisional round. They'd get there at best, and then they would lose to whoever they're playing against. And it's nice to see they've already broken that barrier, right? Like, that's a barrier they've already broken through. The Cowboys are still stuck there. They've been there for 30 plus years at this point.
Yeah.
So they've already broken through that, which is it's kind of a good sign. It kind of means that they're it seems like they're capable of seizing the moment. So as much as they did choke against the Niners last year, it's like it wasn't that bad of a choke to me. Like it looks bad, but I've seen worse where a team just like throws up on themselves in the moment. Like they didn't do that. Like they were still making plays and like they were competing. It's just the Niners like went on a fucking tear,
Yeah. Yeah.
and came back. So I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, um, but yeah, man, it'll be fun. They're fun. They're fun to watch. They're kind of my favorite team to watch right now. In the NFL, I'd say them and I really like the Packers too, actually, um, but they've got their Super Bowls, so the Lions take the cake, right? I want to see new blood get some championships. All right. Well, Montrell, you want to jump into it? We got an exciting show today.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's. I'm really, as you would say, I wish I had a soundbite for it. Chomping at the bit for it.
Yes, sir. All right. So for those of you who haven't listened before, this is our weekly show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to video games. We post at 6 a.m. Central Time on Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app of choice. And if you'd like to send us questions, you can do so on Twitter at The Players Take, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01@gmail.com. All right, Marshall, let's start like we always do with what we've been playing. Do you want to go first this week?
Yeah. So, I have been playing a little bit more Metaphor. I'm like in the limbo period right now. I think that's why I've been, how like all Persona games, or not Persona games, but RPGs in general, they get in this little limbo period after you have like a really good story arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in that period. And I understand like it can't be go, go, go all the time. So I am taking it slow. I did the reason why I'm taking it slow because I don't want to burn myself out of Metaphor. I
Mm-hmm.
usually do this with Persona games, and I realize that I go super hard on it like for like the first 3 weeks, and then I burn myself out of it. So I'm just taking it steady, and I'm putting other games in between it. So I have been playing a little bit of like Operations in Space Marine 2, and then a little bit of just doing a little bit of Helldivers here and there, and also been playing Shadow X or Sonic X Shadow Generations. And the Shadow portion of Generations is very interesting. I didn't put it on the list. I should have put it on the list here. But I see why this game got a 9 out of 10. It is a legit platformer. Like, not to say that other Sonics aren't platformers, right? I think what they did with Shadow, they can do a lot more experimental shit with Shadow. They can give him powers and stuff like that complement the fast-paced platforming. Like, he teleports, he can throw chaos spears and destroy enemies, and he has an array of other moves that they use to get around the map or to get around the level and things of that nature. And I like how they incorporate it within the level design. Also, I feel like they really this is how it's akin to like Frontier. I think they really know how to use the boost method now to its advantage, to where there is some level of exploration with it, but it's more so, and I had to get over it myself, right? The boost to win mechanic is more so like a skill mentality, where you have to use your boost wisely to get to certain parts of the map to clear the map faster and stuff like that. And I feel like they really perfected the boost mechanic. I saw it in Generation, or I'm sorry, I did see it in Generations, to be honest with you. I saw it in Frontiers. But it really shines in the Shadow Generations. And like I said, I feel like akin to Sonic, as opposed to Sonic rather, they can do a lot more experimental shit as far as giving him powers and things of that nature that complement him and his mood and the levels and everything of that nature. And I don't know, I think this is probably one of the best games they've made since like Generations, and then before that, in my opinion, since like Sonic Adventure 2. And I mean, I remember we did read an article that they were going to be putting more money into Sonic Team, and I can definitely see that money paying itself back. This game is like up there in the charts with like fucking Call of Duty this month, just for this month. and
Whoa.
and
What?
other games too. Yeah, man. I
Wow.
saw an article about it just recently. So it's selling like really well. It's doing really well. I think a lot of people like it. And I think it earned that's I was very skeptical of the 9 out of 10, but it definitely earned it, like for sure. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um so yeah, I do want them to get away from classic Sonic. I'm tired of the 2D sections, but I understand why they have them in there because it's like they still got to keep something in there for like us boomer fans or whatever, the millennial fans who
Yeah.
started playing Sonic.
See,
But
I don't think
I'm
they
other
have to do that. I think what they need to do is
I
split off, make those their own game, and make the 3D games their own games. You know, it's
they
like,
and I think they should as well. And I think Sonic Superstars didn't sell as well, and that was like a fully 2D Sonic game. I mean, it was 2.5D, right? It was 3D,
mhm.
but with it on
Yeah,
a 2D playing field. So it's like that didn't sell super well because even my generation, we're tired of 2D Sonic. We want
yeah,
Adventure Sonic. We want, Boost Sonic. We want, like, you gave us Frontiers and then you go back to Superstars. It was kind of like,
yeah,
why would you do that?
yeah.
And I think they're finally starting to get their stride with Shadow X Generations. You can definitely tell like this is super experimental, and that's why they put the generations onto it. They didn't want it to be its own game, but now I can definitely see them making a full fledged like Shadow game that's not Shadow with guns and random shit. Like it's just like, you know, uh
Yeah,
they gave him his own powers and stuff like that, which I really like. So I thought that was like the way to go. And yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what Sega's gonna do with Sonic Team and what Sonic Team's gonna do with the Sonic
mm,
and Shadow going forward.
okay, cool.
But besides that, I did play one mission of the Monster Hunter demo, and I don't know, man. I gotta play a little bit more. It was kind of boring. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like
Oh no,
it,
oh
it
no.
was yeah, it was kind of boring. Not gonna lie to you. And I think primarily too, I was turned off by the 30 frames per second, but I did find out that there is an option to go 60 frames, which I thought we read the news saying that they were going to keep it 30 frames, like it was going to be locked at 30 frames.
Yeah,
So I don't know. But I have been seeing people post clips because the PC beta is not out yet,
right.
but people have been posting clips of themselves playing the game at 60 frames per second. So
Yeah,
and then one of my followers said that it's in the options. So when I go back into the game, I'm going to play it. I think the reason why I only played like the first mission, like the very first mission, I only played it. And also it was like late yesterday and I was like tired and shit. So I think that
mm,
attributed to my mood of like it being boring because I didn't really care about the story shit. It does have like a little bit of interesting story, but like, I mean, it's a Monster Hunter. I don't think the story like is always going to be the attention grabbing thing. Um,
yeah, yeah.
you know, so
Yeah, I'm just
yeah, I
hearing the
mean,
game. I'm just hearing the game's running very poorly. Like it's that, which is definitely a concern. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm
I can,
wondering if it's going to be bad enough that I'm going to have to play this on PC because I'm hoping my PC can handle this game. I'm hoping it can play it at least at 60, which I
I
think
think
it
if you're getting the
can. But
pro, you'll be all right. If you're
yeah,
so you plan on getting the pro, right? I think you'll
I
be all
am.
right.
Yeah, I am going to
Yeah.
get the pro. Yeah, I'm hoping. But there was rumors that it was still going to be 30 frames on the pro. And dude, if that's the case, like I don't know, like.
Like I said, I've seen people playing it at 60 frames.
Is
So
there is
I'm gonna
there are there actually graphics modes in the menu or no?
So
Like
from what people were telling me, it's at the title menu. Because I went into it like you did, like saying like I read the news about it. It's gonna be locked at 30 frames. There's nothing we can fucking do about it. But then
okay.
like I said, I seen people playing at 60 frames, and then people told me that it's actually in the options menu to change it to
Okay.
performance mode.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try it after the
Well,
podcast
that's a
just to
good
see.
sign then. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that's true cuz yeah, I want to play on PlayStation because like this is going to be a tall task, but I've never platinumed a Monster Hunter game and I kind of want to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's going to be a very tall task with this game,
Very tall
probably,
task. Yeah.
because World's platinum is absurd. You know, like you have to. You remember those crowns you would get, the mini and
Yeah.
the
Yep.
large crown you would get. You would have to get both of those for every single fucking monster in the game. You know, and that was kind of the big time suck for the game. But so that's kind of there's probably going to be some barrier like that in there. But I don't know. I want to do it. I love Monster Hunter. You know. It's like I want to do it once in the series, you know, and I feel like this might be the game to do that. I don't want to go back to World and do it. I you know, I'm done with that game. I don't really want to play that anymore. But so we'll see with Wilds. I'm just you know, it's a beta, so it's like it's not their most up to date build probably, and they have a few months or several months to get this figured out. So I'm not too concerned. I think they're gonna stick the landing, but yeah, I guess on the hunt side, you're saying it's a little boring. Like, is it just like is the map too big? Is movement too slow? Is the monster constantly running? Like, what's going on?
The movement is really sluggish, in my opinion. And I gotta get used to it. I haven't played Monster Hunter and like since Monster Hunter fucking Rise.
Yeah,
So, and that was like almost what, a year and a half ago. I think we all played it.
yeah,
So I got to get used to the movements again and everything of that nature. And yeah, it is pretty sluggish and slow. And I think that's because I'm playing it at 60 frames. Like this demo really was like, I'm gonna play this on PC, and if I got to upgrade my PC just to play this game again, like I would do that. Only thing I think I have to upgrade is my CPU, but um,
yeah,
that's where I'm at, like right as of right now. And I'm even leaning on to the side of like maybe I get a PS Pro and it would just be for this game. I think it's worth it. I mean, whatever, fuck everybody else and fuck my own old opinion. But it's like either I get it on PC, something's getting upgraded. I
yeah.
would not recommend playing this game at 30 frames per second. It does
No.
feel sluggish.
Well, that's
It
the
feels
problem with
like
World. That's the problem with World, dude. Is
yeah,
like if you're not
yeah,
playing on PC, you have to play at 30 frames. And it is like that was the thing, right? As much as we don't like Rise in a lot of ways, the game feels great to play though, moment to moment. You know, it doesn't feel
yes, yep,
sluggish. It feels very snappy. The movement's very responsive. World is not really like that on console. Like if you go back to play it on PS4 or even try to play on PS5, like it does not feel that way.
yeah,
The game is very sluggish, and that was kind of always one of the big issues with World is like it doesn't actually feel that great to play it. Like I don't feel
I
like
agree.
the responsiveness is there, and I also don't feel like the feedback is there for like hitting the monster with your weapon. You know, like you don't really feel it as well as you do in Rise.
Yeah,
So that those were the biggest issues with World, and I'm hoping they don't make that same mistake with Wilds because this is the World team, I believe, making this game. So
yeah.
so who knows, you know, maybe they would learn something from the Rise team. I don't know, you know, on that front. We'll see. I guess we'll find out on that. So they have time to fix it
Yeah,
if it's not the case right now.
yeah, they definitely have time to fix it. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like you know what it is, and like I said, this is only me playing like the first 15 minutes of the game. It's literally the first hunt of the game I did. Um, I don't feel like you have enough moves at your disposal. And
Mm,
like that's because I'm coming from Rise, right? Where you have
yeah,
like you get two
tons.
wire moves and you can swap your fucking style in the middle of the fucking game and shit like that. So that's where I'm coming. I also like they were trying to introduce the focus mechanic, so you can focus swing and stuff like that. And I was using the hammer,
Mm,
so maybe the hammer doesn't have as many moves as like the fucking. Uh, I do use sword and shield as my secondary, so I may swap to that to see how fun
one
that
of the more
is.
complicated weapons generally too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So maybe that's another thing because I am a hammer main, and I have been playing hammer since like Monster Hunter 1. So maybe I'm just tired of it, like, and I need to swap to another weapon.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, they they try to tell you how to do a focus mechanic. It is better. Um, on that particular monster, it was really okay to use because you can focus your hits. Um, and uh, they have the moon mechanic back, but like I said, you can focus your hits. So it's not like how clunky it was as when we were playing in Worlds and you had to
Iceborne, yeah.
or Iceborne, you had to moon the monster, then latch onto the monster and then try to hit that part again and everything like that.
Well, and
Um,
also your damage isn't like arbitrarily reduced everywhere else, right? Or whatever.
yeah, it's not, which I do like. But like I said, I gotta get my hands on it and play it a little bit more. This is just a beta, and then even when the real game comes out, that you may unlock other stuff. Because sometimes Monster Hunter does do that, where you unlock. In Rise, they did that, right? Even with the G rank version of Rise, you didn't unlock the ability to switch styles until like halfway through, um, getting into the G ranked or whatever.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I just gotta play it more and see how the game feels. Even if I play it more, I still feel like I'm not going to get the full evolution of the game until the actual game comes out. Which is really what I'm trying to wait for. Which is why I don't want to play the beta. Because I just don't want to sour my opinion on it until I actually play the real game. If that makes any sense. So I don't know. That's
Well,
just me though.
you're making me reconsider even jumping into it because
No.
I don't know what
See, that's
I don't know what value I'm going to get out of it, to be honest. You know?
yeah. And so I don't know. If I were you, I'd just wait for the PC beta, which is going to be this weekend.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. So I'm going to try it as well, the PC beta, and see how that works for me, and see if I like it better on PC. So yeah, I don't know, but that's all I've been playing this week. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I've been playing 4 games. Like I said, I've been jumping in and out of Helldivers because I just want something where I can just pick up and shoot stuff. I've been going to the gym a lot for the last 4 months. I've been going to a gym a lot, and I've come home and I'm like super fucking tired, so I don't really want to focus on too much stuff. So I'll go in, play Helldivers, or I play Space Marine 2. Do a couple operations or missions and then jump out. And, that's it. So yeah.
Okay, well, we did play a little league. Not a ton to say there. I do think our ranked. I told you this, a couple months ago when the split was about to happen. That me and you, I feel like we just have a chemistry bot lane, man. Like our last several games,
I didn't believe you.
We've been locked the fuck in, man. Like it's crazy.
I didn't believe you, though. I didn't believe you. Did we win like 7 games in a row? I was like, holy shit,
dude. No, it was insane. Yeah, no, we like I went all the way to silver 3 off that win streak. It's fucking insane. Like, we had one game we finally lost yesterday, but I think I'm gonna be honest. I think it was winnable if our teammates weren't. We got bad teammates. Like we got a York who played mid, and he just was like the worst York we've ever seen. Like the dude just didn't split push. He didn't know how to fight as York. It felt like he just was not very good. And then we had a bad jungler in that game too. And then our Malphite was like glass cannon Malphite and like couldn't tank anything. So we had a frontline who couldn't frontline, and it was a really frustrating game. So that was like our first loss in basically since we started playing together, I think, in ranked. And otherwise, yeah, I mean, we were like fucking dude, we were dominating. Our lanes were getting wrecked. Every game. It was like we're like 23 and like 40 between the two of us every game. It was like it was getting silly. So yeah, no, I think league's been fun. We do have the new patch preview. I don't want to talk about it in depth, but I do want to point out Varus is getting a little buff. I'm surprised they're doing this. They're buffing his W on hit damage by 3 at all ranks, which was the nerf. So they nerfed it 5 back when he was going top all the time, and that was a huge problem in the meta. So they're bringing it back 3 of the 5 damage, basically. So it's 40% weaker than it was before those nerfs. I'm surprised they're doing this because they are risking him going back top, which I think is definitely not something they want. So, which is interesting. And then Vayne is actually getting buffed too. Her ult is going to be giving her more AD, which I think is also very interesting. They're saying they're doing this to scale her with crit chance to diversify her builds a little bit, which I find to be very interesting as well, because I don't really think Vayne is like weak, I guess, right now. Like I also, she's kind of a character that's very meta dependent, so buffing her is kind of risky. I feel like she doesn't really need power, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like she's good if she gets to the late game. It's always been that way.
I think they're doing that because of the fucking Bork nerfs. So the Blade of the Rune King nerfs. That's why they're buffing Varus, and that's why they're buffing her.
Yes.
As compensation for that. Which kind of like negates the point of it, but I don't know. Of the nerf or whatever. But
I think it was to target certain champions, and I guess they considered Varus and Vayne not in that group. Like they didn't specifically want to nerf them when they nerfed Bork, but they knew they needed to nerf Bork. It's like
because Yone Irelia and fucking even Katarina. Yasuo, they were like first building that shit because it was just so powerful. It was taking 10% off your fucking
I mean,
health.
it's still
Like,
powerful at 9%, though. It's not like it's weak, you know?
yeah.
I don't, like that's a huge amount of damage. 10% of your current health damage is nuts, you know?
It's actually fucking insane.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and it's supposed to be a tank buster weapon, which I understand, but it's like that's a huge amount of health to anybody, obviously. Like, especially a tank, though, it is crazy for a tank. Like, to
I
lose that
think what
much
they
health.
could have done with it is they could have said like, if your health is above, like same thing what they did with like old Lord Dominic's. Like if your health is above 350, 3,500,
Yeah,
then it will start taking off 10%. If it's below that, then it's like maybe cut in half or something like that.
5% or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. No,
exactly.
that's a
Yeah.
good. That would be a. I think it would destroy the item though. Like no one would build it anymore unless they actually were
It
trying to
would
build
be a
tank buster.
situational item, which I think it should
Yeah,
be. Right now, in
yeah.
my opinion, it's everybody needs to build it
It's a
to get
universal.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's because of that plus the fact that it gives lifesteal and attack speed, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yep.
such a good weapon. It just has so much in it, so much power in it. It's like it's tough. So they are redesigning the Yuntao wild arrows too, which was probably one of the worst items in the game. They're taking away the
Yeah.
bleed. They're taking away the bleed and they're making it a first build crit item that gives you attack speed, gives you an in combat attack speed buff, and then also gives you the ability to stack crit permanently with every attack you do. So it needs some time to get its full power out, but will be a decent first slot item for anybody building crit, which I'm actually excited about because I felt like crit has been dead for the most part this last couple patches since they did the item changes. So I'm kind of happy about that because there's really not a great attack speed crit item, and that's the big issue. Is if you want attack speed, you need to go like Ghost Dancer or something, which has no AD on it, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or you have to go Navori's Quick Blades, which also has no AD on it, as far as I know. So it's like you're kind of stuck. You want to go crit, and you need attack speed to go crit, but you need AD as well. You know, it's like so. This item I think fills a niche that was not there, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see. Static Shiv also is getting changed, and I think this is going to be a very interesting redesign of the item. I think this is going to become a burst weapon actually a little bit more because it's going to have charges now, and every time you attack, one charge goes out, and then there's a cooldown to get the charges back. And if you attack really quickly, all three charges will go out really fast. So it also works with Guinsu's and Runan's Hurricane, where if you shoot Runan, if you shoot and Runan's hits like three people, it will use all three of your charges on all three of those people. Like it'll hit each one of them once, you know, and then the static shiv will like chain lightning between all of them. So I feel like it's going to be like a really big opening burst for ADCs. Potentially, we'll see how powerful it actually ends up being, though.
I can definitely see this synergizing well with Hella Blades, like Hella Blades Kaisa, Hella Blades Ash. Yeah,
Yes,
so
definitely.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, one interesting thing about Yuntao Wild Arrows is that the second passive, I think it's called Flurry, where you attacking the enemy champion grants 30% attack speed for 4 seconds with a 40-second cooldown. That is old lethal tempo through and through. And it was actually the cooldown for old lethal tempo was like 10 seconds or some shit, something crazy like that. That's why they took it away. It was just way too overpowered. Because like people like Yasuo, imagine having this passive in the rune, and like Yasuo would have it up, and Yone would have it up all the time, and they can just their trades were like really fucking good. Like they did not lose a trade.
Yeah, that low cooldown was out of control, dude. 30% attack speed. Because you just go in, you attack for 4 seconds, get out, and then you wait 6 seconds and do it again. It's like and as Yasuo and Yone, all your cooldowns are up by that point, you know? It's like
exactly.
Yeah, it was
I think they kept upping the cooldown. So I think it did go up to like 30 seconds before they actually just got rid of the keystone or the rune altogether. But I can definitely see Yone and Yasuo rushing this weapon,
Yeah.
rushing this item rather, just to get that passive, because that passive is if you get that, you're gonna win the laning phase. Like that is your first time item, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think
So
the only thing that makes it reasonable though is the fact that you don't get the crit right away. Like you have to
yeah, yep,
you have to like farm the crit basically. Which is means your power scaling is not going to be immediate. Like it's going to take a little while. You know, it might
yeah,
actually be until you get your second item that you have a real power spike. Which for characters like that, I'm not sure they can afford that necessarily. So,
that's true.
or
Yeah,
somebody like Aurelia. So we'll see how it plays out. 125 attacks is not a lot in my opinion for any character that is an auto attacker. So it's not going to take very long to max that out, but we'll see in game how long it takes. Like, does it take 5 minutes? Or does it take 2 minutes? You know, it's like it probably isn't going to take 2 minutes, but it's possible. You know, if you just sit there and you just hit minions, like you probably can make that happen. So, so
yeah.
we'll see how quick it is necessarily. But, all right. I've also been playing Turtle Wild a little bit. I got to level 54 on my hunter in that. I kind of put it down for a little bit because they announced the patch that I think I talked about a few weeks ago. That they're doing a bunch of class changes in the game, and they're redesigning like a huge number of talent trees for every class. Basically, that patch is coming out on Friday, November 1st. So I'm kind of waiting for that now because I'm excited for these changes. Like I play Hunter, and the stuff they're doing to Hunter is actually kind of cool. Like I'm actually really excited to check it out and try it out. So it's I'm kind of waiting on that right now, and I'll just see kind of how it is once the patch is out. So yeah, I've been playing that. I also I've been like in I've been in this weird headspace where like the War Within for World of Warcraft, the newest retail expansion, when it was announced, sounded appealing to me because it's it's an expansion that is going underground, and you're like fighting the Nerubians, and there's some characters from old Warcraft in this expansion and stuff, and it intrigued me. But when it came out, I just wasn't in the at that time frame. I didn't have. I was playing other stuff. I didn't really want to play an MMO. I wasn't in the mood for World of Warcraft. But then I don't know. I've been playing Turtle While, and then that patch got announced, and I was kind of like, I wanted to give this game a try again, like actually give retail a shot again and see if I liked it. And so I decided to pick it up earlier this week, and I've played it for a couple days now, not very long. I'd say maybe 3 hours total. But I'm already like I'm on the very cusp of level 73 or sorry 72 right now.
Mhm.
And it's like 3 hours, so take my opinion here with a grain of salt. This is just initial impressions. What I'll say is I am into this at the moment. I'm actually having a good time with it. I'm not like blown away or anything. I mean, the thing is, the through line here is that this is still World of Warcraft. Like, it still feels like World of Warcraft. It looks a little different. It has a little bit more. The animations are a lot more embellished, but it's still the same game underneath the hood. It doesn't feel quite like vanilla does. Obviously, but these things, like, it still plays the same way. It's still tab target combat. It's that same feeling and everything. So the thing they did with the War Within, though, that I was one of the things that intrigued me was they brought talent trees back, which talent trees haven't been in the game since I think like Pandaria basically is when they took them out. So we're talking over 10 years of this game's life cycle that didn't have talent trees, which is interesting because the first 10 years it did have talent trees. So they took them out, but they decided to bring them back with the War Within, and they brought them back in a different form though. They're not the same as they were back in the day. So they're basically every class has a main class tree where so I'm playing a rogue, right? And there's a rogue tree, and it kind of has your generic talents and skills and abilities in the tree. And then there's your specialization trees, which are your talent trees, basically. So your three specs. Some classes have only 2 specs, some have 3. Some have 1. I think Druid has 4, and I think Demon Hunter has 2. And then everybody else has 3. I think that's how it is right now. So basically, you have your main class tree that you get no matter what your spec is, and then you get your spec tree, which is your specialization tree. So, which is cool. So you get points for both as you level up. you end up with 61 points that you can spend, 30 on the class tree and then 31 on the specialization tree, I believe. I don't know if you can mix and match points. I didn't level this character organically, so I don't know how that works. I don't think you can, though. I think you have to use the points for either side on the side they're on. So that's cool. That's interesting. And then in the War Within, when you hit 71 and you go all the way to 80, you get a point in what they're calling hero talent trees, which is a further specialization tree for each class that so there's basically, I think there's 3 of them for each class, and you can't pick between the 3 though. Depending on what your specialization tree is, that gives you 2 hero talent trees to choose from, and you pick one or the other. The thing with the hero talent trees though is that you can get every point in them, like every node in them is you're going to unlock by the time you hit level 80. So the only choices within there are certain nodes have 2 things you can choose from, and you have to pick one or the other, and the other one's locked out. So but this is cool. It's kind of brought back the customization element that early World of Warcraft had, so this is kind of getting me back into this. It's like I'm already looking at the talent tree, because after you get a level boost when you buy the expansion. You get a boost to 70, and I just used it on my main rogue. And the game automatically builds you a talent tree though for you, so you can just jump right in and play. But I'm already starting to look at it, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this talent. I don't like that. I don't want this one, that they have in there. And I'm starting to like mess around and kind of make it my own thing. Right. Of course, as usual with World of Warcraft, there is, I'm sure, a fucking optimal build. I'm not looking at that. I don't give a shit about that stuff. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing meta in this fucking game. Right. I'm here to play casually, so I'm making my own talent tree build, which is fun. It's kind of bringing back that like those RPG elements that I think have been missing in WoW for a long time. So that's cool. Gameplay wise, the game, man, as much as I say it's still World of Warcraft underneath, I will say the game is so much faster than it used to be. It's insane, dude. Like I'm playing a rogue, and like I am getting combo points so fucking fast. Like it's crazy. Every ability I use is giving me 2 or 3 combo points, and I think I have a max of 7 that I can have at any given time because of the talents I have. So it's like, dude, it's crazy. I'm using finishers every second or 2. It's like, it's nuts, like max level finishers. So the game just feels really fast. Things have definitely changed too. There are a ton of abilities. Like my rogue has just so many skills. It's nuts. Like, dude, there's skills where I can give my entire party stealth. I can heal myself now. Like there's like a heal that has a 30-second cooldown that heals like 25% of your health. There's all sorts of shit that wasn't in the game back when I played, which is kind of cool though to explore. It's interesting to see this stuff, but the pace of combat is definitely very fast though, for sure. Story wise, not a ton to say here. I'm pretty early on. I'm kind of playing this in a completionist type way though. I'm actually doing all the side quests that they have available. And I'm kind of planning to, I think, do as many as I can, because this doesn't seem like a very big expansion. There's only 4 zones, which is not large for a World of Warcraft expansion. So I actually think it might be manageable to do it in a reasonable time frame. So I'm actually planning to play it a little bit like that as well. I did do something earlier today on my lunch too that was cool. So they have this thing in WoW now called Delves. I don't know if this was introduced in Dragonflight or if this is a War Within new thing, but basically they're like instances that you can do by yourself. So they give you like a NPC party member that joins you. So this is kind of like, I think they kind of took this from Final Fantasy 14, but this is World of Warcraft's take on it. You and that one NPC go through the dungeon, and you do it with that NPC, and you can spec that NPC to be a combat spec or a healer spec, and I think you may be able to get other NPCs later on that have different abilities and stuff that you could take with you instead, which is cool. This is a very interesting thing. So I'm kind of excited to get into that too, because there's like levels to these delves. So I think they go all the way to max level, and you can actually get like decent gear from them and stuff, which is really interesting. So that's kind of cool as well. So Other than that, I mean, not a ton more to say on it, but I'm intrigued to keep playing for sure. I'm sure when I tell Andy that I'm playing, he's gonna fucking sub instantaneously, and I'll probably be able to do dungeons with him, for sure. But yeah, otherwise, I'm kind of just playing casually. I want to like long term, if I do actually stick with the game, I kind of want to go back and play some of the other expansions I never played because they're all available for the most part. The only thing that really isn't available is actually Vanilla Classic because of the changes that Cataclysm made. But otherwise, like Burning Crusade's available, Wrath of the Lich King's available. You can do all that content still in the game, which is cool. This is not a Destiny situation. They didn't vault anything, in the game.
That's
So
really cool.
which is appropriate, right? Like, so what you can do is and this is what I kind of want to do is you can take an alt through one of the expansions and that will get you basically to 70, I think 60 or 70. And then you can do a different expansion on a different alt, so that's kind of how I want to experience it is play through it kind of like that. So yeah, it's kind of cool. The game's it's just got a lot of cool features, I think, as much as there are accessibility things that I think if you're like an MMO purist, you're not going to like this stuff, obviously. But I'm not really that person. Like, I like the pure MMOs, but I also don't hate the modern design as much as other people do either. It's like if you're playing casually, like this stuff makes the game so much more fun to play. You don't have to spend 4 hours walking between zones, and that's your gameplay for the night. You can kind of jump in and actually like go do some shit, and then you in that 4 hours instead. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Other than that, playing Europa Universalis 4 still, and man, this game fucking rules, dude. I'm so into this. Like, I'm probably gonna be playing this game on the side constantly until I get sick of it, because it's just fun, dude. I've gotten to the point where I've started taking over the middle part of India, the Indian Peninsula, and I'm having a lot of success there now, and trying to expand my empire and become one of the bigger powers in the world. So, very fun there. I don't really have a lot more to say. Other than that, though, this game is really cool. But if you like strategy games and you're like a uber strategy nerd and you have not played this game, I would really recommend it. Also, if you're into history, I think it's really cool. It's not like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's an educational game, but it is really cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to get you. It will get you interested in history. If that makes any sense.
That's exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because like I like history. I'm not like a huge history buff necessarily. Like I don't go out of my way to like find this stuff, but I really love it when I can integrate it into things that I do enjoy. Whether that's watching movies or television shows or playing video games or even reading books. Right, I've read some books in history, and I do enjoy that stuff. So yeah, this game is like, it will get you really intrigued, right? Like, because I'm playing as India, right? I don't know Indian history very well, and it's kind of getting me interested. Is like, what was India like in the 1400s? In the 1500s, like what was going on in India at that point in time? And they were kind of a little bit more of a fractured nation. They weren't unified. They didn't unify until the 20th century, actually. So it's kind of interesting to play the game out where you're doing like an alternate history where they become unified much earlier and become a superpower, like a world superpower. So it's kind of interesting in that regard to play it. So cool. So that's all I've been playing. And Montrell, let's go ahead and jump into the news, and let's get into our first story. Red alert, everybody. Red alert. Red alert. Battle stations. It's happening. It is happening. Nintendo yesterday, as of day recording, so we're recording on Wednesday this week. On Tuesday, Nintendo out of nowhere just said we're doing it today, boys. We're doing it. And they just dropped a trailer, and I didn't even realize what it was until Montrell texted me. But yes, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was announced for the Nintendo Switch. Montrell, it's happening. It's here. We're getting it. We're finally getting our game.
This is our Bloodborne, y'all. Like, I thought this day would never come. I actually wrote this shit off. I was like, it's
Yeah.
never coming. Maybe the technology is just they can't adapt it to the Switch somehow or whatever because of like the Wii U gamepad and stuff like that. Um, no, we're actually getting this shit, and they actually changed some of the models and enhanced some of the models and all that shit like that. Uh, I'm glad this is coming to the Switch, man. I don't even know. Yesterday, I was so happy.
Yeah.
I went outside and I called my wife and I said they're releasing Xenoblade Chronicles X and she was like, okay, what the fuck is that? And I was like, never mind. I just had to tell somebody and I hung up the phone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like this is such a Nintendo fucking. First of all, I want to comment on this shit, right?
Hmm.
On the random ass Tuesday, Nintendo's just like, you know what? We're just going to drop one of the most requested games,
Yeah.
probably besides Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I think this is like the third most requested game ever.
No fanfare. No fanfare at all.
And they just dropped the trailer. They didn't even put it in a fucking direct, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Well, I
that's
noticed they're doing this week because they have this, and then they announced something called Nintendo Music 2 hours ago. They just put a trailer out, and then they did something called Clock Tower Rewind launch trailer yesterday as well. They're just dropping trailers, dude. Like I don't know what they're doing right now. Like they don't want to do a Nintendo Direct or something, but this trailer, by the way, is up to
I was just about to say
762,000
that.
views, bro. Like people are hyped. Okay, if you didn't think Xenoblade Chronicles was big, here it is, man. You know, like I think people secretly wanted this game very much. Like there is a lot of excitement out there for this, and man, I'm part of it. We're part of it. You know.
Yeah, I didn't know so many people love Xenoblade Chronicles until actually I started seeing on my timeline how many people were just like they woke up and they're like, "Oh my god, it just released it, or the trailer just dropped," and then people were like, "Yeah, man, the
No.
trailer just dropped."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I thought we were never gonna get this shit, bro. Like,
I couldn't believe it. I mean, to the point that you texted me and I was like, because I told you that I went to work and I pulled up YouTube, you know, for music or whatever, and I saw a trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles X on the front page, my front page of YouTube, and I was like, huh, why is that there? That's weird, you know. It's in the morning. I'm fucking sleepy. I'm not like fully coherent at this point, so I didn't really think too much about it. And I was like, well, I did go watch the Xenoblade Chronicles X trailers recently, like the last like couple 2 or 3 weeks ago, and maybe it's just like filtering those back through into the bubbling it up to the top of my feed. Uh, and then you text me and I go look and I was like, wait a second, dude, it says Switch. I'm like, what was wrong with me? I'm like, are you kidding me? And this like blew up the first half of my day. I was completely worthless. Like I was so excited about this. It's just like it's wild, man.
I
I'm
actually got so much work done after this after this
yeah,
trailer dropped. I'm so
yeah.
excited. I don't know. It's funny. I tweeted back in 2020. I said, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, let's get Xenoblade Chronicles X and Baten Kato's remaster for the Switch." 4 years ago, I tweeted that shit. We got both of them on the
We
Switch
got them
now.
both, dude. Nintendo loves Monolith Soft. There is something happening with this company, man. Like they just like I don't know. I said to you like maybe they know where the bodies are buried or something for Nintendo. Like I don't know because it's unbelievable. Like Baten Kato's though that was random. I'm like why. It's such a weird remaster. Like, how popular is this particular series? This isn't Xenoblade, okay? This is like pre-Xenoblade for Monolith Soft, and it's like,
Yeah.
they're not the most popular games. Like, they're awesome games, but I don't think they're super widely known. You know, so that was really random, and that probably should have been an indicator for us that they were working on. They must have had to have been working on this because this was the last game in their catalog, Monolith Soft's catalog, that's not on Switch now. Like, this was it. So. And their excuse about the gamepad and the way the gamepad works, you know, having to get that, like, dude, come on, it's literally a map screen, bro. Like, it's just a menu. It's not that hard to figure out. Like, I didn't think that was a real excuse. I actually think the harder issue for them was probably getting the game to run on Switch because
You
it's
think so?
it's a big open world, dude. It's a very big open world game.
Is the Switch
And
more powerful than the Wii U, or no? Or is
it
that the
is,
same?
as far as it is. I don't know how much, but it is more powerful. But if you're going to enhance the visuals of the game, though, you're doing that in this giant open world game. Which, I mean, to be fair, the other Xenoblade games are huge open worlds too, and they work on Switch. So,
so I don't know how much of this is true. So somebody tried to do like a data leak on because you can pre-order on the store right now, and someone said that it's actually 5 gigs less than the one on the Wii U. So I don't know. I think Monolith Soft, to join their studio, you have to like draw some blood and like bow down to the devil, because the shit that they do with their games, bro, it's crazy. I mean, even if you think about it, like they helped the Breath of the Wild. That's why we have that world, because they helped design that world. Or
dude, they've helped on the Mario Party games. They've helped on I believe it was Smash Bros as well. They helped on, like, they're like Nintendo's ace in the hole, I feel like, for everything, I would love to see what an unfettered Monolith Soft looks like not bound to the Switch,
Yeah, I know,
like
right?
them making games on PlayStation or something, like, because I have a feeling they would out Square Enix personally. But
I remember you said that, like, a couple years ago. You said that Nintendo wants to make Monolith Soft their Square Enix. Like they want to make Xenoblade their Final Fantasy. And I didn't believe you at first. I'm like, yeah, okay, we can try to see. I think it's actually getting up there now. I think Square has pissed off a lot of fans, even if the reason they're pissed off is not warranted, in my opinion. That people are looking at other alternatives, and I think Xenoblade Chronicles is going to be that JRPG alternative for it.
Well, yeah, and on that front too, like they're very interesting in the games they make, right? Like, because you made a point yesterday when we were talking about this, of the art style changing a little bit, and that it looks more like Xenoblade, which it does. It looks like the other games, where the old art style looked more like Phantasy Star or something like that. And I think, though, I felt like that was deliberate back in the day. Like, I think they were trying to make some kind of pseudo Phantasy Star open world game. Because they're filling a niche that's not filled. Like nobody's making that kind of game anymore. And Star Ocean's like a fucking shell of its former self. So there's not really a lot of competition there. So it's like, that's why I have always wanted a Xenoblade Chronicles X2 that's more like almost kind of like a Star Ocean game, literally, or even not all the way in Mass Effect, right? Like you don't have decision trees or anything like that, but like a JRPG version of what a Mass Effect game would be, I think Monolith Soft could make that, and I think it would be fucking amazing. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for off of the back of this game, is that this sells really well and people are very excited about it, and it's really awesome, and it kind of convinces them maybe to work on a second entry in this like sub series to Xenoblade Chronicles.
So this is one thing I am proud of this fan base for. I don't like the goonerism of the fan base of Xenoblade Chronicles fan base, but I do like the honesty, and I think the goonerism came from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, to be honest with you.
Definitely.
That's
100% did.
Because like what eye candy did we have for Xenoblade Chronicles 1? Charlotte?
Nothing.
I think
no one. No, not like literally, dude, I'm telling you, it's like Melia and Fiora, and they are like the most like non-busty characters to exist in a JRPG ever. Like they are so modest in the way they're designed. And same with what's her name? Oh my god, the medic.
Are you talking about the one that had the sniper rifle?
Yes.
Sharla, yeah.
Sharla, yes, Sharla.
Yeah.
God, I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, it's like even her, like she's not over the top either, really,
yeah, exactly. So
but then you go to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and it's like you get Pyra. Like what? Yeah, and Mithra, dude. Like what the fuck happened? So
the other blades, man, are crazy too. Yeah, man. So but yeah, I say all that to say I did see people like talking to other people about the game or whatever. Some people like, yeah, I played 1 through 3, or I just played 3, or I just played 2, or whatever. What can I expect from this game? And people were being honest, like, I will admit, It's not the best story, but that's all because it's more of a mystery. The story is the exploration of the game, and you're kind of discovering everything as the characters discover it, which is true in the opinion. So they're like, just go in it with the open mindset or whatever, but just remember that the story is not the main focal point of the game. There is no Rex, there is no Noah, there is no Shulk. There's just your created character, and then Elma, and then two of your party members or whatever the case may be.
Which I'm pretty sure your character doesn't ever speak.
They don't ever speak.
Yeah, I don't think they speak. So yeah, there's not like a strong lead in that way in this game, and like Elma's probably the closest thing I think to that, but I don't think she doesn't hold a candle to any of the other games, including Rex.
Exactly. But that being said, this game does have the best combat, like bar none, hands down. Just from the way you heal each other, from the way you interact with each other, and all sorts of shit.
Well, the like gun mode versus your like. Remember, there's two move sets. There's your melee weapon and then your gun. Like every character, every class has a different gun they use and a different melee weapon they use.
Yeah, and then you can also level up each. I'm wondering if they're going to streamline that, because remember you can level up each weapon as well, each weapon type, I believe.
Yeah, you could multi-class, like you could switch classes and then level up in each class.
Yeah,
and there were like little mini skill trees for each one that you would unlock, and you get like permanent abilities from.
Yeah, and it was a really experimental game. I think they really wanted this game, in my opinion, to be an MMO. Like that's what it was like. I think if this game was popular enough, like the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 X2 was gonna be Nintendo's MMO, and who knows? Maybe that's what they're gearing up for. Maybe this is what this is like. The little fucking parfait before we get the fucking full cake. Like, okay, you guys like that game now here, because maybe they know people are gonna like this shit because it does have an online to it. I wonder if the online is gonna be online, like if you can play the online.
Like they're actually gonna include that, yeah. Because it wasn't unpopular, the online. Like it had some people playing it. I dabbled with it a little bit. It was kind of cool. It was kind of cool, but it was definitely like unstructured. It wasn't like super well. I wouldn't say it was super well made. It was a little rough, but it's cool that it was there. So I think the other thing with this though that's exciting is at the end of the trailer there is this tease of potentially more story content that wasn't in the original game. It points to maybe post narrative content, but I'm kind of hoping there's some more content in the middle of the game as well, because that's the main issue with the narrative is that there are just giant gaps between chapters where it feels like things happen but you don't see any of it. It's just like the game does not do a good job of setting up its plot beats. You don't spend proper time with the characters, especially the party like that you meet. Like the cast of characters you can play with in this game is very large actually, and you don't get very much with them in the narrative. You get that in side content, but if you decide not to do a lot of that stuff, you're not going to get it. So I'm kind of hoping they do a little bit to flesh out the narrative somewhat and fill in some gaps. Maybe that might make the narrative a little like land a little bit better than it does originally. I think the other thing too, the other reason I want to see that is I'm hoping they do something with the level gating that was in the original version of the game. That was that was literally the worst part of the game. For me, I didn't have a problem with it because I was 100%ing the game as I went, so I never had an issue with the level gating. I just went out and did side content until I hit the level, for the main mission. But a lot of people like to mainline their games and or golden path their games, and this is not a game where you can do that. Like you are literally forced to go do side content because the level jumps between main missions can get really large later in the game, where it's literally like, oh, you're level 33, well, you need to be 42 to do this next main mission. It's like it's like what? It's like that's insane.
And I think that's because the game expects you to do the side content. But yeah, like you said, like there's a different mentality now. People like the golden path the game, and I think they have to. If anything, if nothing else change, that was my main complaint when I was playing it before. Remember, I was like, if anything, if they do do a definitive edition of this game or remaster or whatever, they have to change that. That can turn off players really
Yeah.
fast.
And I think they
So
know that, dude. They're not shy. Like, dude, definitive edition of the first game, they made a
mhm.
lot of changes. Like they're not afraid to change stuff. And to be honest, like I don't think anything they changed was bad. Like everything was positive in my opinion. So they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I trust them, I think, to make the right choices. We'll see. If it's still there, I'm hoping its effect is mitigated somehow, you know.
Yeah, I hope it's more lenient. Like maybe, like you
Yeah.
said, not go from like level 32 to 42, but maybe level 32 to level 36 or something like that, right? Something
Yeah.
crazy like that. Something
Or
minimum like that.
that's kind of my point about adding some stuff in the game because that would ease the issue with that a little bit, right? Like if maybe
Yeah.
in that gap of 33 to 42 there's a story mission at 36, 37 or something, or 38, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like I don't know, or incentivize doing side content in a better way, you know. So but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. It's coming on March 20th next year. So that was the last thing I wanted to talk about. That release date is very conspicuous. um, I'm thinking this is going to be in the launch window for the Switch 2. Probably. I don't know. I don't think the 20th is necessarily the launch date for the console, but I think I'm kind of starting to think Nintendo's launching the Switch 2 on March 2nd. Like I think they're just going to do it literally 8 years after the Switch 1, you know?
You don't even like. I thought they were going to announce it in next year, like the beginning part of next year.
No, I think I mean, dude, we've been hearing rumors about this console for over a year now. Like I think it's ready to go and they're just waiting for the right window to release it. Um I have a feeling what Nintendo's doing with this, because people are like chomping at the bit to know more about this console. But if you remember, the Switch was announced in January of 2017, and it was released in March, like the very beginning of March. I believe it was March 2nd. Let's
Okay.
see, release date March 3rd. Sorry, it was March 3rd, 2017 is when the Switch launched. So I'm thinking Nintendo's just going to mirror that with the Switch 2. I have a feeling like that's what I'm thinking. I think they're going to do a direct in January, some kind of showcase of some sort that's going to be live. Like it's not going to be like a direct, you know, like a digital direct. And then I think they're going to release the console on March 3rd, 2025. They'll just do the 8-year anniversary of the console. That's kind of what I think they're aiming for right now. And I think this release date is kind of like pushing me to feel that even more. I already felt that before this, but it because I this is coming to Switch, but yeah, I think this is going to be a Switch 2 game also. Like it will be available on Switch 2. So which would be cool because it'd be interesting to see, are there other enhancements that they aren't talking about here that might be part of the Switch 2 as well. So that would be interesting because yeah, if this is on Switch 2, this is the game that's going to get me to buy that console, you know? Like I'm not super interested in it, but I mean, bro, you give me a Xenoblade game, Xenoblade Chronicles X specifically, like I'm there. I'm jumping into it. So I think you're the same way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Like I already told you, man. I'm already on board with the Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called. But
Yeah.
yeah, if it's like you need this to, I hate when they do it, but you need this to get the Switch to play Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Like I'm going to be outside in line camping for that shit, man.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a thing anymore, but I am going to be like doing that, whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I did that with the Switch. That was the last time I did that, right? I went to Walmart the night of release or the night before release, and
Mhm.
I just hung out there for like 6 hours. You know, I showed up at like 6 p.m. and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm here for the Switch." And they were like, "Are you guys launching it at midnight?" And they were like, "Yep." And he was like, "Yep, there's one guy in front of you." And I was like, "Hell yeah, baby, let's go!" And we just hung like there was a group of people that showed up, and like we just kind of were hanging out for a few hours at the end of the night, and waiting for the official launch to start or whatever. And so that it was cool. I don't think we're gonna have to do that for Switch 2 probably, but we'll see. I'm sure Nintendo's gonna have plenty of stock of this thing, so
Yeah.
we'll see. And also, I don't know. because yeah, it's. I just feel like if they waited any more, like what point is there in waiting? Like there's no games, Montrell. Like there's nothing coming out really, Like so what are they waiting for? Like if it's not happening on the anniversary, like when would it be? It just doesn't really make any sense to me strategically. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I don't know what they're waiting for at this point. I thought maybe they would have waited for holiday season of next year, but um, I don't know. Maybe that's not a good time to do anything as well. So
yeah.
yeah,
All right. Well, I'm excited. I mean, this is my number one most anticipated game for next year. I don't care what new game is coming out. I really don't.
same. I forgot about everything that's coming out next year. I knew there was some
Yeah.
games coming out next year, but that like I don't understand. Like now I understand how Bloodborne people feel, right? Like I was just like I wrote this. See, but the difference between us and Bloodborne fans is we just wrote it off. We're like, it's not
Yeah.
coming,
Yeah.
and we're okay with that, right? But it happened. And
Right. We
happened in
got
the
we
most
got it. We got the game, It's happening.
yeah, so like I was super ecstatic yesterday. That being said, I still won't hold my breath for Bloodborne remaster. But hopefully y'all will get it soon.
I
But
think
yeah,
they'll get
man.
it someday. I don't know about
I think
soon,
they will.
but someday.
Yeah, not soon. Yeah, someday for sure. Maybe it comes out with the PlayStation Pro Plus, or
Yeah.
whatever it's called, PlayStation Pro. Maybe it comes out with
Mhm.
that. Who knows? But yeah, man. That's all I got.
Yep. All right. We have plenty of time to talk about this. We're excited. It's going to be great. But let's move on, Montrell, to our next story, which is this is a sad one actually from PlayStation. So the decision on Concord has been made. Sony and Herman Hulst sent an email internally yesterday that they actually released publicly. Like they released the full email publicly, which is interesting that they decided to use this as public communication as well. I'm not going to read the email because it's very long, but the contents of it, you guys can go see it online if you want to read the full thing. But the contents of it are basically confirming that Concord is being permanently shut down, Firewalk Studios is being closed, and they are also closing Neon Koi, which is a studio they had acquired for then they were developing a mobile game for the PlayStation Mobile initiative. They are closing both of these teams, and they did say they're going to try to find places at other studios for some of the talent at these places, which is pretty cool. Hopefully, a lot of people land on their feet that way and stay within Sony. But yeah, I mean, Montreal, the big story here is Concord's done. We're not getting the re-release. They're not making it free to play. It's never coming back. It's over. So, what do you think about that?
Um, I feel bad for the team. I think it was the right decision, but I feel bad for the team. I also think Herman Host should lose his job 100%.
Shit.
I don't I don't know, man. I feel like you can blame the team, you can blame the upper management, but he convinced Sony to buy this team, convinced Sony to put money behind this game.
Yeah.
He convinced them of all this, and then for him to turn around and say, we're just going to shut down the studio. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like no accountability was held. And
Right.
that sucks. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's just my opinion. I know people will feel a little bit different about it and a little bit more hawkish on it. Or a little but for me, I just think he should be fired, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
well,
yeah, I think it's definitely an upper management fault type situation that happened with this game.
No, he definitely has a lot of blame here. This is the biggest disaster in PlayStation history. This is a game that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on to fund, number one, and then purchase the studio, number two. And they made $0 off of this game. So it is the biggest flop. It is probably legitimately the biggest flop in video game history, like literally. And like this is Sony doing this. This isn't Microsoft. As much shit as we talk about Microsoft, this is Sony that this happened with. And this game is I don't know. I mean, it's literally going to go down in history, you know, like it's going to be something we're talking about for a very long time. And I doubt Herman Hulse is getting out of this clean. Like he probably lost a lot of his cachet internally because of his support for this game. Because I do question his leadership from the perspective of vision, you know, because he was the former head of Gorilla. And to be frank, their investment in Horizon, I think, is very is like ill-advised, is what I would say. I don't think he has a vision that identifies necessarily the right franchises. He's been proven right in the sales of the Horizon series so far, but the deeper they go into that, I think they are risking flops with that franchise.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like the sales of Horizons, particularly Horizon 1, I know 2 was different. That one got like 11 million sales, I believe, 10 to 11 million. Yeah. But I think 1 is inflated because of console sales. Like, that's just my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that the game didn't sell. I think it sold like 2 or 3 million the first week it came out. And that's really good.
Well, but yeah, I think it sold 24 million. So even if half that is because of console bundles, which it probably isn't that high, but even if it was, I mean, 12 million is a hit, you know, like, so it sold very well.
It's just weird to me that the popularity of Horizon came out of nowhere. That's where I question.
It's incongruent with the cultural reception of it. It's very similar. I heard somebody talk about this before, that it's very similar to Avatar, where like Avatar is like $1 billion franchise, and when you hear people talk about it online, nobody likes it. You know, it's like, who are all these people going to see these films? You know, like, where's all this money coming from? And I think Horizon's in a very similar boat. I think it's just something like, there's a very silent group of people that enjoy this franchise, but the more they pump into it and the more games they pump out from it, I think they are risking like eating away at that. You know, you're going to erode that. They're going to be diminishing returns to that popularity, I think, over time. And I don't want to make this about Horizon, though. This is about Concord, right? So I'm using that to illustrate, though, my point, though, is that I feel like Herman's leadership and the things he focuses on are, I feel like he's going in the wrong directions. And I think Concord is a huge example of that, obviously. Like, he was supposedly a huge champion for this game, and he's probably a big reason why Sony decided to buy the studio and invest as much as they did into this game. And for it to flop as hard as it did is, I mean, it's on him to a degree. You know, it's like he has some blame in it. You know, he can't get out of that clean. So we'll see what happens with this, frankly. Like, there could be change in a couple of years. You know, it really depends, I guess, on what the output of the rest of the teams is. Because the internal teams all report through him, right? So we'll see if like Ghost of Tsushima or Ghost of Yotai like fucking flops, you know, like that's going to be reflected on him, you know. So we'll kind of see, I guess, what comes of it from on the front of him. In terms of Concord, the game, this is sad. As much as like, you know, we did make fun of some of the like the character designs and things like that. And some of that is warranted, right? I don't think this game was the art direction of this game was not well done. I don't understand how the game came out in the state it did. However, given that, like, this is really sad. The fact that they're not going to get an opportunity to rectify it, like, sucks, you know? Because I have a feeling that the people on the ground at the studio are probably not necessarily to blame here. Like, they probably would have been able to rectify it if given enough time. But unfortunately, the burn rate of the studio was going to be too large for Sony. And I think that's why they decided to make this decision, is that it was going to take too long and they were going to have to spend too much money getting this game into a state where they could put it back out for free to play with no indicator that it would actually work. You know, like, with how little buzz this game got when it first came out, how few people were actually playing it. I mean, we're talking literally in the hundreds of concurrents at peak hours, you know. I just feel like there was no chance that you could have any faith that this game was going to make a splash when it came back. So I think it's the right decision from that regard. It's just really sad that 8 years of work amounted to this, you know, for that team. Because it's just, it's not the like somebody at some point should have pointed out these things, the flaws. It's like it's so weird to me that companies can spend millions of dollars and things like this can actually happen, where you create an environment that people are unwilling or unable to speak up in some way to call these things out. Because I think it's so obvious to us when the game released, it was obvious to everybody that like this game did not look right. Like the art direction and design was just not up to snuff, and it's weird that no one internally ever saw that or picked that up or pointed that out. It's like, so, but this happens with corporations sometimes. They're not every environment is open and honest. Actually, many times that is the case. It's more often than not, it's not open and honest, where you're not allowed to speak up, or you're not encouraged to speak up. It's kind of looked down upon to criticize leadership or criticize the thing you're working on. It's like, those are not environments where success happens often, in my opinion. So, yeah. Montrell, you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I just hope the people that were on that team, rather, I hope they bounce back. Like I said, we joked on the game, but I feel like you said, it had room to, or maybe not room, but there should have been more criticism, but positive criticism, or
yeah,
I don't know. There should have been just more leadership.
I think if it had been caught earlier, the game could have had a chance.
Yeah, I just think it was yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, to be honest with you. I think the game just needed better leadership. I really do blame leadership on this one. And I say this because I'm starting to take on more managerial stuff and everything like that, and I understand how much leadership affects the workers, and everything of that nature. And yeah, like if something goes wrong under my watch, like if worker does something wrong, then that's my fault. Like, why wasn't I on top of that to catch that, So it's just like that's kind of how I feel about when stuff like this happens as well. So I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's all I got.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to our final story. So this isn't like a news story necessarily, but Dragon Age: The Veilguard reviews have come out, and I kind of wanted to talk about this with you to kind of get your perspective on it. So there's kind of a divide that seems to have happened here between traditional outlets and YouTubers. There are a fair number of prominent YouTubers, including Skill Up, Mr. Matty Plays, and a few others, who are very negative on Dragon Age: The Veilguard in their reviews of the game. And then it seems like in traditional outlets, the game has largely been received fairly positively. The Metascore for the game is currently sitting at, I think it's an 84, which it is at an 84, which means you did win our Guess the Metascore for this game. But yeah, it just seems like there's a huge divide. But also, I did want to mention too, Andrew Wilson was talking on an investor call, and he did say some interesting things as well. That he said that BioWare has returned to its strengths with the impending release of Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and he said he praised the reviews, and he says that it has, quote, breakout potential. Because the game currently has limited competition right now. So, and then he said, quote, BioWare really returning to BioWare type games, really returning to BioWare's strengths, which is interesting in his. It's kind of interesting coming from him. And going on one final quote here. BioWare has rallied around what made BioWare a fan favorite studio and a fan favorite brand, and the types of games they make. Incredibly rich worlds, incredibly nuanced characters, really powerful and compelling stories with camaraderie, friendships, and relationships, and decisions that matter in the context of gameplay. And I think it's been that return to what made BioWare great, and giving the studio time to deliver against what makes BioWare great in the context of the Dragon Age world is what amounts to Dragon Age: The Veilguard. So I threw a lot at you there, right? We got the critical reviews from the traditional websites that are fairly positive. We got YouTubers who are fairly negative on the game, and then we got Andrew Wilson, who seems very happy with the game. and seems very supportive of the studio actually, which we can get into that part of it, the corporate side of it. But pull at whatever thread you want there, I guess, to start about this game.
So I mean, like I said yesterday when we were on Discord with each other for like a brief moment, in my honest opinion, so there are two sides of this story. I'm gonna jump on one side, then I'm gonna let you segue on the other side. So the first side of this, in my opinion, is like the initial reviews from the people who did get their review codes, and that's a hint of where I'm going to go next with this. For the people that did get their review codes, a lot of the reviews that were negative genuinely was because the game was not Dragon Age Origins. Yeah. A lot of the people that did play it had their early impressions of it. Everybody I that almost had something negative to say about the game, they were upset that it was not Dragon Age Origins. It was not Baldur's Gate. It was not a traditional CRPG. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with traditional CRPGs. I love CRPGs myself. I love Dragon Age Origins. I still consider Dragon Age Origins one of the best ones, story-wise, and even gameplay-wise. If we could get like an up-to-date version of Dragon Age Origins, I would love that as well. So I am not hating on that style of gameplay. That being said, we knew where they were going when Dragon Age 2 came out, and then we knew where they were going when Dragon Age Inquisition came out.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this surprise has come from, where it's like, oh, they just went totally action. And it's really giving me Final Fantasy 16 vibes again. It's giving me Final Fantasy vibes. Where Final Fantasy 16 just threw off the band-aid and it was like, fuck it, we're going action. And they did it. I mean, they had some like, RPG elements, but barely any in the game, but they went pure action with Final Fantasy 16, and people to this day are still complaining about that game. And unfortunately, I feel like Dragon Age Veilguard is going to get the same treatment. And I don't think it's fair, to be honest with you. I don't understand that people want CRPGs, but we just had Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3, released last year, or year before last, I'm sorry. Or was it last year? It was last year, right? No, it was the year before last.
No, it was last year.
It was last year. Yeah, we just had it released last year. In my opinion, you can't get any better than that for a while, right? And I understand, like, well, I want to experience more games in that genre, and there are more games out there like that. But unfortunately, Dragon Age isn't that, and it hasn't been that for 15 to 20 years at this point. So I just don't understand, in my opinion, where this is coming from. Like, because that's like I'm telling you, Justin, I like all the criticism is literally that's because of what it is. Someone got mad because they're like, oh, it's a cross between God of War 2018 and Guardians of the Galaxy, the new Guardians of the Galaxy game. Storytelling wise, I'm like, you just named two excellent games. I don't understand where this is coming from. So I say all that to say, like, I think people are just upset and they want to be mad at BioWare for something. I'm not even going to address like all the wokeism shit and all the other bullshit like that. I'm not going to address that because, first of all, like, the gay sexual orientation conversations and sexual themes have always been in BioWare games all the way since Jade Empire. So we're not going to have this conversation. Like, they've always been slowly incorporating that.
Dude, one of the best companions in Dragon Age is the gay character that you have in the party. He's like one of my favorite characters.
Exactly. So it's like, we're not going to have this conversation. From Mass Effect to Dragon Age to Couture to all these other games, like, whatever.
It's not suddenly a surprise that this stuff is in the game,
exactly.
Right?
It's not. It's not.
Right.
It's always been a part of BioWare's DNA, in my opinion. But yeah, I think the combat thing is one to talk about. And like I said, I'm not picking one over the other. I prefer both. But that's just my opinion, and apparently a lot of people don't prefer both. Now, the second part of this is I think people are really upset. Some people are really upset that they didn't get a review code, and that just comes down to like first world YouTuber problems, and
Yeah,
that's why we
there's
see.
definitely a group of YouTubers who get butthurt when they don't get early access to a game.
Yeah,
And I don't know where they get off thinking they deserve that for some reason. Like I've never understood it. And a couple of the ones I mentioned are actually in that camp. Like I've heard those complaints from them before, and I'm like, dude, like you're not special just because you're on YouTube, like they can decide to send a game to whoever they want, and you just weren't on the list for whatever reason, and maybe you were targeted. That's possible, certainly, but it's just like to whine about it is like it's too analytic-y for me in the sense of like they're probably worried that they're not going to have their review out on the embargo date, and they're going to miss that window, and it's like you're kind of missing the forest for the trees if you're a big YouTuber, dude. Like people want to hear your opinion, so they'll probably show up anyways, whether if it
yeah,
comes out a week after the embargo, it's like whatever. So that shit annoys the hell out of me. It's so like you sound like you sound entitled, it's a very entitled thing to complain about to me.
yeah, and I mean, in the second part of this, which I don't like, I will say I don't like that they withheld review codes because they thought that reviewer was going to give a negative impression or a negative review of the game. So I don't like. So it's two sides of that story. I don't like both sides. I don't like what EA is doing, BioWare EA is doing with those review codes, and I don't like the entitlement of the YouTubers. I feel like both of them are entitled, but on the other side of the coin, same coin, different sides.
Yep.
It's just come down to the entitlement on both sides. Like, because you're not entitled to a good review just because you give them a review code, and you're not entitled to a review code just because you're a popular YouTuber. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about the whole situation as far as like, because you didn't play Dragon Age Inquisition
I played Dragon Age 1. That's it. So
okay.
I don't have like a horse in this race really as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I did watch Skill Up's review and Mr. Matty Plays reviews. And I came away from them. I watched those before I looked at any of the reviews. So I was like, oh man, this game's going to bomb, huh? And then all of a sudden I would go and look and it's like, oh no, these seem like outliers,
Yeah.
compared to everybody else. So I don't know what to make of it necessarily, but I will say to back you up on, I think their reviews they were definitely the ones coming at it from the perspective of, I want this to be a CRPG, and it's not a CRPG, so it's a bad game, and I think this is like a pitfall when you're doing a review for a game, right? It's a trap, and I'm to be honest, I think Skill Up falls into this trap sometimes because I think he did this with Final Fantasy 16 as well. I like, to be clear, I respect Skill Up a lot. Like, he has great opinions. He's very articulate. His videos are excellent. Like, he's a really good reviewer, but he does fall into this trap sometimes where I think he has expectations for what a game is going to be, and then when it comes out and it's not that, he gets stuck on that sometimes. And I think he's doing that here as well because like, I don't know where these people are coming from. Like, like Final Fantasy is the corollary, because to me it's like Dragon Age hasn't been a CRPG in 3 games. What are you holding on to this for? They're not doing this. They haven't done this in 15 years. What idea did you have in your head that it was going to be more CRPG-ish? Like, I don't really get that criticism for this game. Like, dude, the second game was a pure fucking action game. It's like,
Yeah.
like they've long abandoned the CRPG nature of this franchise. So I'm not really sure why they thought people think that was going to happen here. So it's kind of weird. That's kind of the weird element. I think that the negativity, some of the other stuff they showed, like there was some dialogue stuff they showed that is definitely weird. And like, it doesn't seem like the writing is necessarily great. Like, it's probably not up to Baldur's Gate 3 standards, but at the same time, they're showing clips out of context for the most part. You're not seeing the full conversation. So it's kind of making me interested in playing the game. Like, I almost want to go play it and form my own opinion on it, because when people come out on a game like this hard, I almost want to know for myself, like, where do I stand on it? Do I understand their criticisms, or does it feel like there's a little bit of like butthurtedness here that is influencing their opinion. It's like, which side of it is it? Because it can happen. It happens to anybody, right? There have been games that I've probably overly criticized because of what I was hoping they would be. It happens sometimes, but at the same time, I don't know. It's I just think this game was in a rough spot no matter what happened, because we're coming off 2 really bad games for BioWare, right? Like, you've got Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda, and then you've got Anthem, right? These were not successful games. The last game from them that people actually thought was pretty good was 10 years ago in Dragon Age Inquisition, and in this franchise. So they had a very steep hill to climb. And if you remember, when this game was called Dragon Age Dreadwolf, it was going to be a live service game. That was the plan, and at some point that was taken out of the game and it was turned into a single player game. So how much of that is also in the game as well? I did hear some discussion of that as well, that there are the bones of a live service game in this game still in some ways, in terms of maybe some of the mission structure and stuff and map structure and stuff like that, which I would like to see. And I think you're going to play this game, so I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Right? Do you feel like that's true or not? And if it is true, how true is it? Like, is it?
So I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with the game, because I don't know if you remember when I was talking about it, but Dragon Age Inquisition had those missions that were like cell phone games, whereas
the timer ones, right? Like, you send some NPCs on a mission for 20 hours or something. Yeah.
And it was like actual 20 real life hours.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that aspect in there, that I can believe if they take it out, and then you may see remnants of that, because I feel like Dragon Age Inquisition, they also were trying to do something like that, where if you have these, like, if you have dragon bucks, you can speed up the mission or whatever.
Dragon
bucks. but ultimately they probably did go through with it. But Dragon Age Inquisition also had a multiplayer component to it as well. It was just ass. And they end up scrapping it like completely. But it's still there. But I remember I tried to play it and it wasn't that good when it first dropped or whatever. It wasn't as good or fleshed out as the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where one thing I can understand and I won't push back on is if people say the dialogue is bad. I don't think the dialogue in BioWare games has been good since Mass Effect 3. In my opinion. Even Dragon Age Inquisition, the dialogue was okay, but they had limited dialogue choices and everything of that nature. But it wasn't like the best writing. It was like you can tell where they were going, and then Mass Effect Andromeda is like where they ended up. You know what I'm saying? So I am curious. That is one thing I'm curious about, was the writing. I want to see what they're going to do with the writing, and how bad is it going to be, or how good is it is, or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to go into that with like an open mindset, because like I said, it wasn't bad in Dragon Age. It was, or Inquisition rather. It was teetering though. I was just like, I don't know about this. But one thing I'm definitely going to like reject, and I know this is probably not the best thing to do, but like I am going to reject the notion that people are just upset about, the action combat. Because like you said, it hasn't been in there it's 3 games now. It hasn't been in there for 3 games. You can still pause time. In Inquisition, they tried to kind of compensate for that, because you can pause time, issue commands, and everything like that. You can actually zoom out of the map, issue commands, pause time, and do what you need to do while you're doing other stuff. So, and on the harder modes in Inquisition, you had to do that. Besides like getting the OP build, you had to like issue stuff to your team and everything of that nature. So I am curious, because I completely went dark on the game until like yesterday. But from what I was seeing, you can still do that. But that also, because I did watch Skill Up's review and everything like that, but it also could have been a thing where they weren't using that functionality to prove a point. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, see, you
Yeah.
can't pause time here or whatever. Like, they could have been not using that functionality. So, I also don't like the comparisons to like God of War as far as an RPG. I don't think God of War is your staple for what an RPG should be.
No,
God of
not
War,
at
in
all.
my opinion, is barely an RPG. They just put
Right.
damage numbers on the fucking armor piece,
Right.
and that was it. You know, um,
Literally, dude. It doesn't need to be there. It's just take it
yeah.
out of the game, the next game. But
Um,
yeah.
so I don't like the comparisons to that. I I don't like the comparisons to. Well, I actually do like the comparisons to Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think what makes me upset about Guardians of the Galaxy is um people are making that game out to be a shit game when it's actually good. So it's like it's
Wait,
like
who's saying
what
that? What the fuck? They didn't play the game, dude. Fuck that. The
yeah,
Guardians is
so
awesome.
so it's like I don't I just don't get these comparisons. And um I also don't trust I don't trust the IGN reviews, to be honest with you. The 9s out of 10s and the Kotakus and all that shit like that. I don't trust their
Right.
reviews as well. So that's why I was trying
Yeah.
to reserve judgment because I really want to play the game myself. As well to see, but like just from what I was seeing of the game, uh I was happy where it was going. I knew once they just said fuck it, we're gonna go action combat with like RPG elements. I feel like that's the best way to do something instead of like, oh, we can try and do both a little bit. And it's like, no, you can't like fucking please
Yeah.
everybody. Go one side or go on the other side, you know. There's only a rare instance where you get like a Final Fantasy VII remake where they can do both, and they did both. Um and yeah, I don't know. Uh that's really where I fall with this game. I am going to be biased. I will say my opinion is biased because I do like action games, but I also do like CRPG games. But I came out of this reading all the reviews, watching all the reviews, reading the comments. I was just like, oh, this is a Final Fantasy 16 situation. People are just mad that it's not a CRPG, or in Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy's case, people are mad that it's not a turn-based game. So yeah, uh, I just say people just go out and try it. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a situation where I don't really trust anybody's opinion.
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of the negativity is around the woke stuff too, which is just such, like, I just think it's so reductive. There's just no depth to the conversation there. So
I would be so glad when we, as a society, move away from this shit.
I
Like,
can't wait. I hope I hope it's soon. I hope it's within the next 5 years or so. It's not going to
yeah,
be, but I'm so tired of this shit, man. Like, these
yeah, man.
conversations are exhausting. But anyways, I did want to talk about Andrew Wilson real quick. I do want to give him props actually, for
Mhm.
what he said in the quote that I mentioned. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna take a guess here because he's been the CEO of EA for a while. I think since I think it's been about 10 years or so.
Yeah,
So he was around for the entirety of Anthem and or most of Anthem, and then Andromeda, and then this game's development. So I'm gonna take a guess that he has something to do with the fact that this game is not a live service game. I'm gonna guess at some point he's like, look, let's stop trying to make something that you guys can't make. Like, focus on your strengths. And I think that's if that's what happened here, big props to him, to finally let BioWare, at least, even if the game's not good, at least you're letting them make games that people want out of them, and B, um that's within their wheelhouse, right? Within their history. Like, you're not trying to turn them into something they're not. And maybe even if this game isn't super well received by the public, um hopefully it's the beginning of maybe a rehabilitation of this studio. Because I think we all want to see BioWare at least become somewhat respectable again. It's sad,
yeah,
the situation that they're in. I don't want to see a studio like this with the IP they have and the games they have and everything. Like, be in the state they're in. So
just the cultural impact they had.
yeah, right.
I mean, in my opinion, they're the main reason there's like two types of Star Wars fans now because of Couture.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely, absolutely, dude. KOTOR is unbelievably influential in that fan base, and it's a video game that they made. It's crazy
exactly
to think about.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you. I mean, um, it's just really weird, man. I feel really bad for BioWare because, like you said, they're not going to win no matter what. I'm reading the comments of this article you linked in IGN, and like
Yeah,
people are just like super negative on the game. I do agree with one thing. I think the character design, not the design of the characters per se, but the proportions of the characters are fucking weird. I do think that. That's one thing that did stick out to me when I was watching the game. I was like, why the fuck are their heads so big compared to their bodies? And I know that's like an artistic stylized choice, but I personally don't like it. And they even said it was another article. I don't know if it came out in this article, another one where they said they're going to do like a photorealistic version or photorealistic graphics for Mass Effect, which I'm like, okay, I guess. I guess you can say Mass Effect was like photorealistic. They did body scan a couple of the actresses and actors and everything like that. But anyway, getting back to this, like you said, I really want BioWare to be great again. Baga, but I really want BioWare to be great again, and everything, and hopefully this game, it is like the top 3 most pre-ordered games on Steam and PSN, according to some comment. I did check it, and it is up there on Steam. So there are people who are not locked into like this online culture war thing, who are just like, I want Dragon Age, and I'm definitely one of them. I didn't pre-order it, but I am definitely one of the people who's buying this game day one. Once I saw the 20-minute gameplay, I was like, that's all I need to fucking see. I'm locked in now, and I went black on it. I didn't watch anything else from it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm glad also, it's almost also like a self-admittance that maybe they're getting away from this whole make multiplayer games type shit that they were doing. And they just want BioWare, like you said, to make BioWare type games. And I really do like that quote. BioWare is really returning to BioWare type games, really returning to BioWare strengths. Even though personally, I think Anthem could have been one of their biggest strengths. But
I agree. I do agree. It didn't happen, Montrell. We got to let it go.
Yeah, we got to let it go.
We got to let it go. Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got for that, though.
Yeah, and on the point of the comments under the article, I saw this in the Reddit thread that I put in the doc as well. People, please, you guys like really have to stop taking reviewers that you like and taking their opinion as gospel. Like I watched a lot of Skill Ups reviews, not every one of them, but for certain games that I'm interested in, sometimes I'll go listen to his review beforehand, or generally I'll wait till I beat the game because I don't want to get spoiled because he spoiled like this game in particular. Dude, if you don't want to get spoiled on Dragon Age the Veilguard, do not watch Skill Up's review. It's fucking spoiler filled. all over it. So it's like these people are just parroting talking points from some of these reviews that I've listened to or read, and I'm like, dude, you haven't played the game. Why are you so confident and authoritative on your opinion in a game you haven't played? It's so weird. And then there's people like this. I'm just going to read a quote here. Dan Stapleton came in to like defend the IGN review and the reviewer for the game, and somebody responded to him with this quote: "It's no secret that this new entry in the franchise has taken a different approach to previous titles, and I mean all aspects, from art style, now action RPG, and the appeal to modern audiences. Now, all due respect to the reviewer of Dragon Age Veilguard, but I suspect that the score got what it got because the reviewer is of a non-binary value. I can't tell you how to run the site, but if I was an employer, I would be hiring gamers to play games and come to a score together, even an average. There's a lot of hate for journalists from gamers at the moment." End quote. It's like, dude, number one, the games, this series has had action combat in previous entries. What are you talking about? with
I was
that.
just about to say that. When
And then
was Dragon Age Inquisition like?
No, and then number two, to throw out the suspicion of this person being non-binary without knowing it is like, what a wild thing. What are you like? What are you doing, bro? Like, this is such a brain dead like counter argument, to me. It's like, it's just, this is what I'm really upset with, like, the game industry in general, honestly, the community and even the companies and reviewers at times too. It's like we boil these very nuanced discussions down to specific talking points, like really reductive talking points about, oh, it's woke. Oh, the reviewer's non-binary, so their opinion isn't objective. It's like, okay, I mean, I could say the same thing about you in the opposite way. You're going to play the game and say it's woke. You're not objective either because you hate quote woke. It's like, so it's just like, I don't think people are really having, like, I feel like the industry and the fans within the industry, like, there's just got to be some like growing up with the way we discuss games, man. It's so disappointing to like read the discourse on video games sometimes because I just don't think there's any critical analysis skills. It's just boiled down to a few talking points. You don't get into the nuance between the lines of things. Like, you're not really analyzing something from a you're analyzing it from a bad faith perspective, or you're coming at it from a bad faith perspective. And I just think it's so prevalent out there. And I just wish people would stop doing it. It's obvious that it was going to happen with this game. I knew it was going to happen with this game, but it just sucks to see how bad it actually is, because even the Reddit thread, dude, people are in here like, these aren't people like saying anything negative or anything like that, but they're talking about whether they're going to buy the game or not. And what they do is they go find their favorite reviewer or two that kind of lines up with their opinion most of the time, and they decide to buy a game based on whether that person liked the game or not. It's like, I don't like. I think that's weird. I think that's weird.
Like, this person just said, yeah, with actual examples of what Skill Up showed for me. With Skill Up showed, it's not for me. I play fantasy RPG for story choices and well acted emotional scenes. I'll stick to Baldur's Gate 3. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. But this is a fantasy RPG game. I'm sorry, man. And it does have choices in it. Like, and he just went off Skill Up's review. He didn't even play the game.
Right.
And I don't know, man.
Like, Skill Up is specifically cherry picking things to enhance his argument in his review. Like, you have to know that when you're watching his review. It's true for anybody. I did it with Stellar Blade, right? Like, when I did a review of Stellar Blade, it's just part of making a video, right? Like, you're making your argument for your opinion on the game, and you're gonna pick things that help back up that argument. But there's an inherent bias there to what you're showing, of course, right? Like, there are elements in my playthrough of Stellar Blade that might not have backed up everything I was saying, but I didn't show those things. It's like, and that's true for Skill Up as well. It's like, it's just part of any content you're gonna watch like this that's based off an opinion. You can't take it as gospel like that. It's like, you don't know if you would like the game based off Skill Up's review. Even if you feel like that's true, you're like self-reinforcing that to yourself, because if you buy the game and then you don't like the game, well, you went into it thinking you weren't going to like it because of Skill Up's review. It's like you're creating a bias within yourself. It's silly. It's like, you can't, I just feel like you can't approach entertainment that way,
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's so weird. Somebody mentioned, oh, I'm playing Metaphor, and it's like, Metaphor has the same fucking themes in it, but it's talking about racism and within the power structure and stuff like that. So because like, this is what I'm talking about for the biases, right? I feel like Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth is doing the same exact thing. They took something that was action or turn-based and made it action, and I'm not seeing anyone really bitch about that, right? But you know what? Ooh, Japanese. That's literally what this fucking boils down to. It's some of these fucking Reddit comments, bro. Yeah. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love Metaphor. I love Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. And it's like, and I like I said, I haven't played Dragon Age Veilguard yet, but my thing is, and I also like Justin, I love Skill Up's reviews. I actually disagree with him on It was one where he did. It was like a late review, and it was Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 15 Royal Collection. And
Yeah.
I disagree with him in that entire theme because I don't feel like the game, even with the Royal Collection, it did not fulfill what
Dude,
it was.
when I went and listened to that review, I could not believe. I'm like, wait a second. This is the same guy that hates 16? What do you mean you like 15? What do you And I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
he played it fully patched with the DLC, which is supposedly a great game. You know, it's like I think if
No,
he had
it's
played
not.
the version we played, you know, maybe you'd have a different viewpoint. But
I
it's
still even think the full game is not good. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But like,
yeah,
yeah, I agree. So like, there are things I disagree with him on. And everything of that nature. Like I also disagree with him on it was some action game that just recently came out. Or maybe it was Final Fantasy 16, but I thought maybe it was like Stellar Blade or something like that. I don't know. It was something where he his open bias against Bayonetta affected his review of another game. And maybe that was Final Fantasy 16, I think he was playing
yeah,
where
yeah,
he was like really bagging on Bayonetta because he did not like Bayonetta at all. He called it a button masher and
yeah,
all that other shit like
yeah.
that. Um,
Well, I
but
think
like
with Stellar Blade, he wouldn't stop harping about the fact that it was like near, like it was aping near. Like that was like
yeah,
half the review. It was really irritating. Like it was too much. Like he just kept
yeah,
talking about it. Yeah.
yeah. And but like those are like those are like the biases of certain reviewers and stuff like that. So like even your favorite reviewer, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
And like I stopped taking one game I really stopped taking like IGN's reviews really seriously. Well, first of all, they do the whole point system where they're like 7.9 or whatever. I'm like, what the fuck is a 7.89 game? Like, oh, well, but you know, could have got one more point if it had this many pixels of water, like for
Yeah.
fucking what was it?
Pokemon.
Pokemon or whatever, right?
Too
And
much
after like
water.
a seven, yeah, too much fucking water. Like, what is that? And then like also like
Yeah.
almost every Madden they came out, it was getting like 8s and 9s and shit like that. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck, you know? But the game that really stopped me from like really taking IGN reviews really seriously, and this was like years ago, is when they gave God Hand 3, and that was on the
Mm.
PS2. And that if you go back, I can't. I wish I could find a fucking article, but Capcom literally stopped supporting that game if they didn't want to continue with that series because of that IGN article. That IGN article killed that game, and then people actually went and got their hands on the game. It was like, oh, it was like $10 in a bargain bin, which is actually how I got God Hand. It was like $5 in the GameStop bargain bin. I played it,
Mm-hmm.
and I absolutely fucking loved that game, and I couldn't believe they gave that game a fucking 3. That's when I stopped taking like reviews really seriously and everything of that nature. And also they gave like Monster Hunter like a 5, like Game Informer or whatever gave Monster Hunter like a 5 or some shit like that. There's like the camera angles is just not there, and I'm like, yeah, camera angles do suck with Monster Hunter, but that's not the point of the game, man. You just gotta have that dog in you when you play Monster Hunter. But anyway.
Part of the game, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
But like uh, and another point, like you said, we already talked them, but I can't harp on it enough, man. I really, 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 really want to get away from um the culture war shit and everything like that. I think if there was a comprehensive history of where it came from, which is Gamergate, I think people will understand where it came, why it got, and then obviously like other influences. I'm not going to say it, the other influences like outside within the last 8 to 10 years that have influenced that and blew it all the way up, all the way from like red pills to like political stuff that's happening in the real world and all the other shit like that. That really amplified this culture war that's happening within video games. But it did start out with Gamergate, and and it is a legitimate thing that was going on, that is still going on, but it's not as prevalent as it was. Because I don't know if you remember, it was a game that came out on Steam that wasn't a fucking game,
Yeah.
and reviewers gave it like a 10 out of 10 or something like that, and all it was a fucking questionnaire that was on Steam, and like, you know, people gave it they're like, oh, this is one of the greatest games ever. Then it came out, it was a scandal of like her boyfriend was one of the reviewers, and it was a whole big thing. And that's what kind of kicked it off. And then like the second part of that was Anita Sarkeesian's like I think it was called Damsels in Video Games or something of that nature, where she was making good points, but her examples for the points were really bad. So it was easy to pick apart her argument because she really didn't play video games like that, and the points that she was trying to make didn't make sense. But they were still valid, if that makes any sense. Whatever, that's neither here or there. But like, yeah, like I don't know, man. I I think you also have to think too, a lot of these people are like maybe 18, 15, 16, 17, 20, 25. Some of them probably didn't even play the first Dragon Age. Some probably weren't even born when the first Dragon Age fucking came out. You know what I'm saying? And so they do think this is a whole culture war thing. They weren't even born when KOTOR came out. They didn't even know about Jade Empire. They didn't know about Baldur's Gate 2 or whatever.
They don't have context.
Yeah, they don't have context behind BioWare's catalog and how they do games. Like BioWare was the first person to bring, or one of the first companies. I'm not going to say they are the first company, but they're one of the pioneering companies to bring these sort of conversations of race, sex, and orientation into video games and have it weave in and out of the game really well and everything of that nature. And like, of course, we saw other games try to emulate that. I think The Witcher is another game, another cyberpunk, but CD Projekt Red with the Witcher series, they also explored those same themes within the Witcher world. I think that was really cool as well. So, which would be a very interesting conversation. If The Witcher 3 came out today, would that be called woke? You know, so
I don't know. See what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like you said, I'm waiting for this whole. Maybe it would never die, but I just really want
I just hope games. It's not gonna die, but I hope it becomes a minority of the conversation. I guess.
Yeah, because the internet discourse around like video games, like Metaphor, for example, you can't romance none of the characters. None of the characters have like any type of romance or whatever. They don't even blurt out their like sexual orientation. They don't even say like, "Oh, I like this character. That character looks good," or whatever. Like human shit. Like you've been around this party forever, and it's just like you don't have an attraction to somebody, or you're like they always take it to like the friend level, and it never goes past that point. It's actually kind of annoying, to be honest with you, right? And it's like. But it's like, is that what we want our games to be? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the character development in Metaphor is astounding. But it's just like, some parts of it are just really unrealistic as well. It's like, all right, man. Well, like,
it's also it's very funny because everyone's an adult in Metaphor and you can't romance anybody. And yet,
exactly.
Persona, they're all teenagers and you can romance. You've always been able to romance in that.
And you know what? I think that's because. I think that's because of today's climate. That's what I really think it is, man. I think they made the conscientious decision to not do that in this game. So
they didn't want the controversy. Yeah. But all right, just to wrap up the Metascore conversation. So Montrell had guessed a 79 for this game, and I had guessed a 78. So I took the under. Montrell took the over. It is over at an 84. So Montrell wins this round on the Metascore stuff. And I had one more thing in here if you want to one topic I wanted to ask you about. So I don't know, you got a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about strategy guides and using strategy guides to beat games, and it was actually around Metaphor specifically, but it kind of expanded into other things. And so one of the hosts had mentioned that he was going to use a guide to play Metaphor, and he had a guide literally printed out a guide that told him what to do on every day to 100% the game, and the other hosts were not into this idea, right? And somebody had written into the show to like call him out on this too, and like how insane it is. And he defended himself, basically saying like this is how he plays games. Is like he does like if he wants to 100% the game, like this is just he's a completionist. Like he wants to complete the game, so he uses a guide. But the argument from the other side was like, okay, but you're using a guide, but then you're like judging the game based on your experience using that guide. You're not having an organic you're not having an organic experience with the game. And in Metaphor's case, right, part of I would say the design philosophy of a game like Metaphor or Persona is for you to kind of choose the activities you do yourself, and you might not get those. You might do the wrong thing on certain days, or not necessarily wrong, but if you're trying to 100% the game, we'll just say in that context, it might be wrong, right? Because you're not going to 100% it if you do certain things on certain days. You're going to miss things and stuff like that, right? So you're like missing that organic experience of the game, and that's kind of a design tenet of the game, is that the game gives you a bunch of activities and you choose what you want to do, right? So using a guide robs you of that, and you're not having that, and that might paint your opinion on the game as a result. Because he also made a different argument. There's certain games that he likes to play without a guide, where he'll play through it the first time without a guide, and if he wants 100% it after that, he'll come back on a second playthrough and use a guide, right? But those games happen to be some of his favorite games of all time. It's like Last of Us, the Uncharted, games like that. And it's like you've almost, to me, I felt like he had built in a bias for himself, where the games he thinks he's going to like, he doesn't use a guide, which then enhances his experience because he's having an organic play through the game. Whereas games he doesn't think he's going to like as much, but he still wants to 100%, he'll use a guide, which then takes away some of the discoverability of the game for himself, which then reinforces his opinion that he doesn't like the game that much. And it's like, so I wanted to say that that was the number one thing I wanted to ask you about, like how you feel about all that. And number two was, at a certain point in the conversation, he brought up Zelda, and that he used the guide for Zelda. And he used the guide for Zelda to get all the heart pieces, all the side stuff. And I literally like screamed at my phone when he said that. I was like, are you? And his argument was like, everybody uses guides for Zelda. Like don't try to lie and say you don't. And I'm like, you're probably right, 100%. But I'm like, dude, Zelda. I think about Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, and Majora's Mask specifically, which are my three favorite Zelda games. I never used a guide on any of them until I decided I wanted 100% it, like late in the game, and I had done everything, and I was struggling to find things, right? But Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time specifically, I never used the guide, and I got all the heart pieces. I got all the masks in Majora's Mask. I did all the quests myself. Like I figured it all out, I just put the time in and figured it all out. And let me tell you, in Majora's Mask, that's hard. There are some really obtuse quests in Majora's Mask. But my ultimate point with that is the whole point of Zelda is discoverability. You are ruining the game by playing it with a guide, in my opinion. Like I think that's insane that you would play Zelda with a guide your first time through the game. Like I think that's completely crazy and defeats the whole purpose of the fucking game. But what do you think of all that? Am I insane or am I on the right track?
No, so it's very funny. I used to, way back in the day when I was younger, like, PS1 days or whatever, I did used to use a strategy guide. And it was mainly for like when I was playing. I remember we bought a strategy guide. My first strategy guide I ever bought was for Tomb Raider, the very first one. And so when did Tomb Raider release? Tomb Raider, I think that was like 96?
97.
Yeah, it had to be like 96, 97. And so 96. So I'm like, 7 at that time that game came out?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I know how to read and stuff like that. I know how to recognize patterns and everything of that nature. And like, second or third grade or whatever, however old you are when you're 7 or whatever the fuck, however grade you in. So, sometimes that shit's like a blur to me. Like I don't remember.
Yeah, no, that. I know. Yeah. I understand.
But like, so, I did buy a strategy guide because me and my uncle were playing through that game. I didn't buy Tomb Raider myself. He bought Tomb Raider because he used to come over my house and play the PlayStation with me. So me and him were both playing through that game. And we were playing through it without a strategy guide for the longest. And then we got to one part where it was like a legitimate glitch in the game where we couldn't get past this one block. And we are like, maybe there's something else supposed to do. But it was actually glitched or whatever. Or whatever the case may be. So but the next time I used a strategy guide was for Digimon. Digimon World. So I did use it, and the reason I used a strategy guide for that is because in Digimon you had to raise your Digimon to certain stats, and you had like 6 different branches of each Digipath that you can evolve your Digimon to. So if you had like 100 in defense, your happiness was 65%. And this is all on PS1, by the way. And I'm like fucking 8 or 9 playing this fucking game, y'all. So like you will get Monochromon or whatever. Or if you had 100 in every stat, you'll get like Greymon, or that's what your Agumon would evolve into. So like if you wanted to strategize where you want to go, you would have to like get a strategy guide, and it would tell you like these are the certain stats you need to get to certain places, and also to like to unlock certain things. You had to rescue Digimon and bring them back to your city, and there were certain criteria you had to do. You had to go at certain times of the day to where Digimon were at. Maybe they were awake at that time. You had to fight them, then bring them back to the city. Like it was a lot of stuff that you had to do, and a strategy guy kind of help you with all that or whatever, right? So I think like in certain instances, like it was cool. Like for me, I use a strategy guide as like, all right, I don't know where to go. Tell me where to go. Like I tried, I'm stuck. I tried everything where I need to go. But like for Digimon, I use it to actually strategize what I want to train my Digimon to be, and everything of that nature. And even for Monster Hunter, like the very first Monster Hunter, I used a strategy guide for that because I wanted to know. And to be honest, it was useless. To be honest with you, the strategy guide I got from Monster Hunter was fucking useless. For the very first one, all they did was like kind of tell you the weaknesses of monsters, and that was pretty much it. And it was a really bad strategy guide, to be honest with you. It was one of the Bradley Games strategy guides, and you can tell like they really didn't know what Monster Hunter was as well, because it was the first game or whatever. They didn't even have any strategy for like the G rank in Monster Hunter. So it was really weird. But anyway, I think that was the last game I bought a strategy guide for, was Monster Hunter. Legitimately.
Okay. Wow.
And I haven't bought one ever since. But I'm not gonna. I think there are certain instances where you should use strategy guides and where you shouldn't use strategy guides. I don't really hate on people for saying like I played through a game with the strategy guide.
I don't either. Like, do what you want. To be clear, like I don't have a problem with it. Right? If it makes you happy, go for it. But,
me personally, like playing through Majora's Mask with the strategy guide is fucking insane. Playing through any Zelda game, the only game I could probably give you grace on is probably like Breath of the Wild, because that game's fucking huge. But my wife didn't play through that with the strategy guide. She just YouTubed some shit where she couldn't figure it out. She's like, okay, I'm just gonna YouTube it. I don't know what the fuck to do or how to get this fucking seed or whatever the fuck, you know. So
but using a guide though to get every single collectible, like that's insane in a Zelda game. The whole point of the game is to run around and find that shit, isn't it?
Yeah, I would only use a strategy guide if I really don't understand how the fuck to get that. Because sometimes there are collectibles you're like, how the fuck did it get up there? Like, how do I get up there? In some situations or whatever. And I that is the fun part of figuring it out. Like, because sometimes when I do, like, sometimes like my brain was just like, okay, I don't fucking care. I'm just gonna use a strategy. I'm gonna look YouTube how to get that fucking thing out. And then I see how they do it. I'm like, fuck. That would have been so cool if I had discovered that. Like, I get mad at myself because I didn't discover it like casually or whatever. So I'm 50-50 on strategy, guys, man. Like, on one hand, I can definitely see. I think they're a really good tool. Like, you know what? Actually, Metaphor is a really good example. I think they're a really good tool because sometimes in Metaphor, actually, that can be a very unforgiving game if you don't save correctly. Very unforgiving. If you go into a fight and you don't know the boss's weakness, or you don't know how to fight against this boss, if you don't, because you actually have to talk to people, and then if you talk to people, they give you certain strategies how to beat certain bosses within certain dungeons, and that will go towards when you analyze the enemy. You know, your fairy will tell you like, oh, like this is what they said how they beat it or whatever the fucking case may be.
Mhm.
Side note, Metaphor, they actually do have a trophy called "Hey, Listen." I thought that was funny.
Hey,
But
listen.
and I think you have to actually talk to your fairy like 100 times or some shit like that or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so in certain instances, I do see the strategy portion of the strategy guide, where it's like I do want to come into this with some type of strategy. What are the weaknesses of this monster? And it's like, oh, there may be a weak to pierce and fire attacks, and like, all right, cool. That's all I need. So I'm like, all right, that's all I really want to know. Don't tell me how else to beat the monster. I'm gonna try to build my party around strategy or around piercing and fire or whatever the case may be. And I think that's where the strategy of the strategy guide comes into. It just becomes a cheat guide, in my opinion, where you're like, oh, this is what you need to do day by day. Because like you're right. In Metaphor, in Persona games in general, that is the whole thing of those games is like trying to figure out what you need to do day by day and then getting in that rhythm. I can understand if you don't want to play the game again, but it is designed for multiple playthroughs, you know.
But aren't you like, I guess my argument there though is are you losing something by playing it that way? I understand the idea that 100-hour RPG, you don't want to play it twice to 100%. I totally get that. Trust me, I understand that. Like that's not an unreasonable thought. But I do feel like you are robbing yourself of something by playing the game like that though. No? Like
for certain games, yes. I 100% agree with you on that. For other games, like if it's like a Digimon or a Pokemon type game or whatever, and you just really want to strategize how to like min-max your monsters, I don't necessarily think so. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I agree. I think that situation's fine. I've done that before. Like this is a random poll, but Bomberman: The Second Attack on Nintendo 64, you had a little sidekick named Pommy, and he would evolve throughout the game. And enemies would drop food that you would pick up and feed to him. And depending on what you picked up, he would evolve in many different ways. Like, dude, it was actually really absurd. He had like probably 15 or 20 different evolutions, I think, in that game that could happen. It was insane. It was insane, dude. I don't know why they put this in a Bomberman game, but it was cool as fuck. It was awesome. You know, and if you gave him like meat, he would be like a really strong and tough version of Pommy later in the game or whatever. And he would really fuck enemies up, or you could feed him vegetables and he'd be like more agile or something, you know? Something like that. So I remember when I was a kid, I used the guide to figure out how to get certain evolutions because I wanted to see the different evolutions in the game and have them and play with them. So I use the guide for that because figuring that out organically for all of them is really difficult, right? Like that's going to be hard for you to do. So you know, for me personally, like I don't mind using a guide in that way, but like I've used guides for RPGs before, like JRPGs, like Star Ocean, Till the End of Time, the one on PS2. I used the guide for that. Final Fantasy 12, my first playthrough of that game, I used the guide for that. And I will say for Final Fantasy 12, for Star Ocean, it was fine. I don't think it did. That game is so complicated and huge. I actually think you kind of need a guide for it. It's a really overwhelming game. But Final Fantasy 12, I do think kind of pushed me into a gameplay cycle that was not organic. Where like, because that game had chests in dungeons that had random loot in it, but the loot was a loot table. So there was a percentage chance for each item on the table to spawn when you went into the dungeon. So I remember there was this early game dungeon that I went into, and there was this spear that had like 11% chance of dropping, and it was like a really rare. It was a rare spear, like it was labeled as like a yellow item. So it was like more powerful than what you could normally get. And I remember like I spent like an hour or 2 hours like going into the dungeon over and over and over again trying to get the spear, and finally I got it. And I remember the design of this, by the way, in this game is really stupid. I think this is a huge flaw of Final Fantasy 12, but I remember I got the spear though, and dude, I was so OP for like the next like 15 hours of the game. This spear was so broken for the point in the game that you get it, from what I remember. And I was like, it kind of like, I wouldn't have gotten that organically unless I got really lucky in my first time through the dungeon, because I wouldn't have even known about that loot drop mechanic. So it's like, I just like I kind of regretted playing the game that way at the end of it. I was like, you know, it's a huge portion of the game that I just like completely nullified, you know? and it's like not challenging at all. It was irrelevant what level I was. Like it was silly. So I'm like, that's kind of how I feel about guides now. Is like if I'm playing a RPG, especially where you have a lot of choice and there's a lot of strategy and how you build your party and stuff like that. I don't want a guide for that, right? I want to do that myself and figure out the party I want myself, if it's a game that doesn't have story and is kind of I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what a good example would be. I don't even really know. I'm kind of like you. I don't really use guides anymore. Like if I get stuck in a game and there's something specific I need to do, I just go look it up on YouTube or online real quick, and then I don't look anything else up. I just go back to playing the game.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I am now. I haven't used a guide in a very long time. It's probably been, I think the last one I used was Tactics Ogre on the PSP. I had like a free coupon through their rewards program at GameStop for a free strategy guide. And this was like one of the last guides I remember ever getting because they were just not making physical strategy guides anymore at a certain point. So I remember getting it for that game though, and I used it in that game. And I've played Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together before, so it didn't spoil anything for me. It was just I was just using it to like kind of have everything available to full complete the game, and that was kind of the whole point. So it was I think in that context I don't have a problem with it, right? If it's like a secondary playthrough and you're trying to 100% it. But I just feel like for me, like my first playthrough of any game, I want it to be like a really organic playthrough. Like I don't want to like taint that with knowledge of what's coming ahead or, just like a guide telling me what to do or how to build my character or something like that. Actually, I did just think of one. So I actually played Sekiro with a guide for where things were, chests and stuff like that. The reason I did that is because I didn't give a shit about any of the FromSoft weird bullshit of like, you got to talk to this guy at this specific point in the game, and there's a fucking chest over here that you have to get at this specific moment. Otherwise, it locks this fucking ending out of the game. Like,
I can't blame you for that. I can't blame you for that. I can't.
Well, I didn't care about any of that shit. I'm playing Sekiro for the combat. That is literally the only reason I wanted to play Sekiro. I didn't care about any of the other stuff. Like, I don't care about the story. I don't care about the itemization, the secrets. I really didn't care about any of that stuff. It's literally, for me, it was straight up like the combat and fighting the bosses. That's the reason I wanted to play Sekiro. So I didn't have a problem using a guide in that context. Would I do that with Elden Ring? No, I don't think so. I really don't think I would. That the whole point of Elden Ring is exploration and discoverability. Like that is kind of the point of that game, right? So I wouldn't play that game with a guide, even though I did with the Sekiro. So
yeah, so I mean, like I said, it depends. Sekiro is very interesting. I think Dark Souls games are very interesting in general because I wouldn't fault somebody for playing Dark Souls, and I used to be very, very hawkish on this before, where I'd be like, "Ugh, you played Dark Souls with a guide? You're supposed to experience that organically." I remember, like, I was talking to DJ about it, and I was very, like, on the other side. I was very aggressive with it as well. But now, since I'm older now, I kind of like calm down to that, where it's like, yeah, if I can understand why people don't want to play Dark Souls without a guide, because there are certain things. There are certain things where you can make a boss very easy if you had this one item, or if you knew this one little. If you went to this door and you, like for instance, first boss in Dark Souls, you can actually get behind the boss, and take off a huge portion of the health by dropping down his head and stabbing him in his head, and then fighting him or whatever. A lot of people didn't know that or whatever. And I mean, it's the same with like all like Sekiro, and Sekiro has some bosses like that, where there's only like for one of the bosses in the cave, you can only fight him with divine confetti. If you don't find a divine confetti, he's almost impossible to fucking beat or whatever. So yeah, like I get it, and I think like that's why I say it's like I'm 50-50 on it. Certain games, I think are very complicated, or just complicated enough to where I understand someone wanting to use a guide. In my opinion, though, I feel like games like Zelda are not hard for that. I'll even say to a certain extent, like No, I can understand if you use a guide for Pokemon. Like if you want to know what the boss
Yeah,
is that you're going up against, or you want to know what a certain Pokemon are in certain areas and stuff, because that world is just so big or whatever. I can
yeah,
definitely understand that, but I can't understand using like a strategy guide for. Uh, I don't know. I feel like games like Persona, games like um uh Legend of Zelda, even like Resident Evil. I
yeah,
feel like the whole point of those games, especially for Zelda and Resident Evil, the whole point of those games is to figure out the puzzles and everything of
yeah.
that nature. Like that's a huge part of the game. Um, and like you said, Persona is like experiencing the day to day. You're supposed to be role playing as that character day to day,
Right.
doing things and everything of that nature. So it kind of defeats the purpose. And then on the other hand of that, I do understand like, but then it comes down to this, right? Are you playing the game to experience that, or are you playing the game to get an achievement? Because like one
Yeah.
can say like, well, I want to 100% the game in one playthrough, and it's like, well, you're not playing. You're playing it for a stat. You're not playing it
Mm.
because you really want to play this game. Like that's really why, in my opinion, I play a game first fully, and then I'm like, okay, I might go back and platinum this, because like, okay, I actually like the game after I played it the first time. I have enough in me to go back and play it the second time, or whatever the case may be. That's my criteria for like what game I'm going to
Mm.
platinum or whatever.
Hmm.
Now
Yeah.
I understand other people like they have different criteria. That's just my personal one. That's why I don't have many platinums because I don't really care for the platinum stat like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I understand for other people that is a huge part of their gaming accomplishment, and I don't hate on that. Um, I don't know. Strategy guys are weird. I just don't feel like I feel like in today's age there really isn't. I thought they died out. To be honest with you, I didn't know people still buy like printed strategy guides. I just YouTube shit now.
Well, they no, they
So
don't. They don't exist in physical form anymore.
okay.
Um, no. The person I was talking about literally went and found an online guide and printed it out.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
can't. So and that's another thing too, because usually those are like um created by the community. So does he wait until like the second or third week the game is out to get like a accurate read of the game?
Hmm.
Okay. I
Oh,
guess.
sorry. Say that again.
Like usually those are community driven, like community written those guides.
Yeah, the guy. Yes, yes. He got it from like I don't know, like Power Picks or something like that. One of those
Yeah,
sort of
so
sites.
that's what I'm saying. Like, does he just wait until like 3 weeks after the game's out so he can get the
No,
full
they
guide?
were no some whatever site he was using had a guide done pretty well. Yeah, I guess you're right. He's not playing it on launch in this particular case.
Yeah.
So no, with games that are released that he plays on day one, like no, I don't think he's using a guide most of the time, but he doesn't play a lot of games on day one. So
Okay, that makes
um
sense.
so
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So
So I don't know. I think it might like yeah, it's a 50-50 for me. I just think it's depending on the game, your mood. I do agree though. I rarely try to use a strategy guide because I don't want it to spoil what's
mm,
coming up next for me. I
mhm.
I use it. I use a strategy guide to strategize my next move. Like
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, but I don't want to spoil my next move because there are legitimate times where there are legitimate things when I'm reading. I'm like, and they're like, okay, now Ginny goes to talk to Jill. And I'm like, what the fuck? Ginny's talking to Jill now? What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
Like, I
right.
didn't,
Or dude, they tell you what the boss is or something. Like they
it,
don't like they show a picture of it or they put the name in there and
yeah,
it's like a huge reveal in the game. It's like, oh, so and so betrayed the party and you're fighting a boss fight again. It's like, what the fuck? It's like
exactly,
fuck.
exactly.
So
So
yeah, no, yeah.
that's why I think a good rule of thumb for a strategy guy enthusiast is to play the game in its entirely first and then go back and use the strategy guide for certain different things. That's my
Yeah.
opinion, but I
Yeah.
understand some people don't have time to go back and play games and stuff
Right.
of that nature. So
Totally.
yeah.
But I think you are losing something a little bit. I guess
Yes.
is
Yes.
my
One hundred
ultimate
percent.
point. So, um, real quick, just to go back to the Dragon Age thing,
Mhm.
just to show you how I think Andrew Wilson is actually right. I have a feeling this game is actually going to sell pretty well because SkillUp's review has 1.5 million views in 2 days, dude. And you want to guess what his Silent Hill 2 video had 12 days ago?
I'm gonna guess like 500 views, 500,000 views rather.
No, 238,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and most of his videos are around the 300K, between like 100 to 350,000, I would say. Most of his videos, and this one is far and away, it's not even close, 1.5 million. And I'm like scrolling through his recent videos, and there is nothing even remotely close to a million. So clearly, there's a lot of buzz for this game. That is, I don't think that's a skill up specific thing necessarily. I would not expect that to be true. So
someone say in the comments, turning down the difficulty just to be done with the game sooner is a huge red flag. That is a huge red flag.
Well, it could be a red flag in two ways, right? It could be a red flag for the game, that the game sucks enough that you want to do that. It could also be a red flag for the reviewer, that by turning the difficulty down, you made it even more monotonous because it's so easy now, you know? Whereas later in the game might have ramped up the difficulty, and you're not going to know that, you know? So it's like, it's hard because I did forget about that. Yeah, you're right. He did say that he put the difficulty down to easy to finish the game because he was so sick of the combat or whatever, which is fine. I mean, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, right? Like, I mean, it is what it is. But you are like changing the game though at that point. You know, you're not getting the, I would say, the default experience of the game, but I say this as somebody who plays most of his games on hard, so I'm not getting the default experience most of the time myself. So it feels like Dragon Age Veilguard. If it has a hard mode, this feels like a game to play on hard, not normal, personally. But yeah. So, all right, Montrell, let's get the hell out of here. For those of you who like this episode, please like the show, review the show, and subscribe to the show whenever feed you are listening to it on, as well as subscribing to us on YouTube. If you'd like to interact with us on Twitter, you can do so at iTrap for the Hokage. That is the number 4, not the word. I'm at Thundernut01, and the show is at The Player's Take. If you'd like to send us a question, you can do so on Twitter, or you can send us an email to the Player's Take at theplayerstake01@gmail.com. That'll be it for us, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.